Before Ren ever wakes up in a bullied student's body, the world knows that same heroic soul as Leon, the great wizard sent to end Demon King Belfar. Belfar tries to turn the final battle into pure terror, throwing everything he has at Leon, because if Leon falls here, the world stays under a Demon King's boot. Leon answers with the kind of magic that makes a Demon King reconsider his career path. Belfar's attack should overwhelm any normal mage, but Leon forces the fight back onto his terms, proving this is not a duel between equals anymore. Belfar still pushes forward, so Leon commits to the finishing spell instead of playing defense. That choice matters because this is the moment Leon stops surviving the Demon King and starts ending him. Leon declares the battle over, and for once that is not dramatic posturing from a guy with too much smoke behind him. Belfar's threat collapses, and Leon stands as the strongest mage alive, the man who has just bought the world peace with his own hands. The world celebrates Leon, the great wizard who defeated Belfar and ended the Demon King's reign. Peace returns, which should be the reward for saving everyone, but this story is already sharpening the knife behind the medal ceremony. After the victory, Leon returns to Tenure Orphanage, the place where he was born and raised. The children running through those grounds show what Leon actually fought for. Not glory, not titles, just a home that still remembers him before the legend got expensive. At the orphanage, Leon is greeted like a hero by people who still see the person under the reputation. That warmth makes the next visitor far more dangerous, because betrayal hurts most when it walks in wearing royal manners. Prince Shark, the royal prince who comes to Leon after the Demon King's defeat, steps into the reunion with business already loaded in his mouth. A child greets Leon with innocent joy, but Shark is here to redirect the hero, not celebrate him. Prince Shark reveals he has called over a foreign subordinate and wants Leon assigned to investigate something for him. Leon thinks peace has arrived, but Shark is already moving pieces around him, and that quiet order is the first crack in the hero's reward. Years earlier, after Belfar's defeat, Prince Shark sells Leon the prettiest lie in politics. Dangerous forces must be removed to protect peace, especially for the children. Leon hears that and chooses duty over comfort, because those kids are not a slogan to him, they are the reason victory matters. The prince has found the one button on Leon's armor, and yes, he presses it with both thumbs. Soon after, Leon apologizes for keeping the others waiting and takes command of the knights sent to investigate the monster problem. They march out under his lead and reach a cave where his companion reports the target is inside, so Leon orders everyone forward carefully instead of treating this like a victory lap with swords. Inside the cave, Leon senses that the problem is bigger than a simple monster hunt. The magical presence feels wrong enough that he connects it to the people disappearing there, which means this mission was never routine. Someone has led the strongest mage into a place built to isolate him. The trap snaps shut when Leon's companion warns Prince Shark, only for Shark to recoil from a poison attack and realize the danger is aimed at him too. Leon confronts the attacker, and the question changes from where the monster is to who arranged this whole setup. The cave is no longer an investigation, it is a sealed room with betrayal breathing in it. Prince Shark finally drops the noble speech and declares the cave Leon's execution ground. His reason is brutally personal. Leon has gotten too close to Queen Sarah, so Shark decides the hero who saved the world now counts as an obstacle. Leon's shock lands because this is not a Demon King stabbing him from the front, it is a prince turning public gratitude into a murder order. Then Shark twists the knife by telling Leon the children he cared about are already gone. He burns Tenure Orphanage, the place where Leon was born and raised, so no surviving support could become a problem later. Leon's power answers before his grief can, and for one moment the prince learns that mocking ashes is a terrible hobby around a legendary mage. Deep in the abyss after Shark's betrayal, Leon's punishment becomes a survival trial instead of an execution. A skeletal creature descends on him, and Leon denies what he is seeing because even he has never met this thing before. But denial does not keep claws away. He chooses the only rule the Abyss respects and fires back, which begins the 10-year slaughter that will turn a betrayed hero into the force later reborn as Ren. The Abyss hits Ren before he even understands the rules, so his first lesson is ugly and simple. This place does not care that he once killed Belfar the Demon King. When a secret quest window appears with an absurd reward of 1 million, Ren realizes the pit is not only trying to murder him, it is grading him for it. 1 million is a very confident number to put on a death notice. Ren faces the evolved skeletal creature and reads the objective for what it is: survive the infinite passage long enough to earn the reward. The creature presses him with power he cannot ignore, so Ren stops looking for an exit and starts treating the abyss like a battlefield with paperwork. The monster's size and pressure should crush him, but Ren holds his ground, and that matters more than the exchange itself. The abyss is proving that ordinary magic is not enough down here, which means Ren either adapts or becomes one more bone in the floor collection. 10 years later, inside the abyss, survival has turned Ren into something far beyond the betrayed mage who first fell in. The reward finally pays out as darkness attribute magic, a forbidden power that marks the cost of those 10 years. He did not escape the abyss clean, he learned to speak its language. Then a pleading voice begs Ren to defeat something, and Ren demands to know who is speaking because after 10 years of monsters, anonymous requests deserve suspicion. A radiant figure answers with force instead of explanation, turning the reward ceremony into another trial before Ren can even stretch his fingers. The sudden attack shocks Ren, but it also confirms the important part. The Abyss is not done testing him just because he earned forbidden magic. Ren endures the pressure and pushes back, proving his new power is not decoration. Though the welcome package could have used fewer explosions. Ren reaches for his own magic and forces the confrontation to stop being one-sided. The radiant figure still threatens him from above, but now Ren has enough control to answer the challenge instead of merely surviving it. Ren snaps at the figure to wake up already, which tells us he is not just trying to kill whatever stands in front of him. He unleashes Armor Flood, a technique that wraps his power into overwhelming offense. And for the first time in this exchange, the other side has to take the hit. Armor Flood blasts the targets away, but the backlash throws Ren too, so even his upgraded magic comes with a receipt. The ground settles after the attack, and the fight finally pauses long enough for words to matter again. The radiant figure offers to talk somewhere else, and Ren accepts the shift because information is now more valuable than another crater. As the magical sphere hangs overhead and the figure changes form, the Abyss reveals this was never just a monster hunt. It is leading Ren toward the forbidden power and answers he needs for revenge. Years before Ren can understand the Abyss, Leon, the great wizard who defeated Belfar, faces the goddess's messenger in a form that looks cheerful enough to make the underworld feel weirdly understaffed. The messenger asks for confirmation, then gives the real job title, Guide for the Dead, which means Leon has not been rescued, he has been processed. Still in that past, the messenger explains that this world is different from Leon's original one, so death is not the clean ending he expected. Leon follows the explanation because the rules have changed under his feet, and if he wants revenge on Prince Shark, he first has to understand where he has landed. The Abyss opens a passage, and Leon sees the next truth waiting inside it. Survival here is going to be earned, not granted. The first enemy forces him to react immediately, so the lesson turns from divine briefing to practical exam with no desk, no chair, and absolutely no mercy. Leon steadies himself inside the pressure, but the enemy proves it has the stronger position and drives him back. The important part is not the chase, it is the reveal. This thing has a magic barrier strong enough to make ordinary attacks useless, so Leon cannot win by fighting like the old hero anymore. That dead end becomes the turning point when Leon receives Dark Attribute Magic, a forbidden power that gives him the one tool this place cannot simply shrug off. He walks into that power instead of rejecting it, because revenge and survival now demand a version of him the old world would have feared. Leon tests the new magic with a spell called Deprivation of Blessings, and it does exactly what the name promises, with all the bedside manner of attacks notice. The creature's protection collapses, proving dark magic can strip away the enemy's advantage instead of merely hitting harder. With the barrier gone, Leon finally sees the creature for what it is, and his clenched fists say he understands the price of this road. He is not just learning a spell, he is becoming someone who can survive monsters that were built to crush heroes. The creature attacks again, but Leon no longer treats it as an impossible wall. He stands before the massive thing rising from the ground because this is the Abyss forging him into a forbidden magic user, one enemy at a time, with no graduation ceremony and very poor lighting. Back in the present world, the story snaps to Ren, the bullied academy student carrying Leon's will, as a sudden stop and a request for his time pull that old darkness into the current crisis. This matters because the crest connected to Ren is not just decoration anymore. It points toward a hidden Seeker's system operating behind the Academy's public face. In the present, a masked Seeker's contact appears in the rain, and the number on that mask turns the conversation from personal suspicion into organized secrecy. Ren says he did not see one, then apologizes, because he realizes too late that the real danger was not the monster in front of him, it was the system he failed to notice moving around him. In the present, inside the academy dorm, Ren's quiet crisis turns public when uniforms gather, and a hostile magical message basically invites everyone to fight while insulting their housing and cafeteria standards. Whoever sent it is not just attacking bodies, he is testing pride, and the students freeze because answering a challenge like this means stepping into a game they do not understand yet. That is when Ren gets singled out by name, and the question changes from who is causing trouble to why Ren matters. The clue is the crest connected to him, because someone recognizes it as matching one Prince Shark once wore, but the correction that follows makes the mystery worse, not better. If the crest is similar but not identical, then Ren is not holding a simple royal symbol, he is holding a lead into a hidden system. Elsewhere in the present, a masked Seeker's contact orders a purple mimic to copy Ren's speech too, which means the conspiracy is not only watching him, it is preparing to imitate him. Ren stays composed, but his own understanding is thin, and that is dangerous because this world hides its rules behind uniforms, crests, and very suspicious masks. Tiny note for the academy, if someone says copy the voice, maybe do not leave that guy unsupervised with a student ID, because Ren still lacks the full map. The story steps back to explain the public version of this world. Seekers are people who kill monsters and harvest valuable resources from them. The profession is growing because danger now pays, and more people want in, which is exactly why the Sacred Imperial Academy exists as the school that trains young mages to become seekers. But that little but matters, because the Academy is not just a school, it is the front door to the same power structure closing around Ren. At the Sacred Imperial Academy now, the hierarchy gets a face. Izumiya, the student council president and one of the Academy's authority figures, demonstrates the kind of controlled power students are supposed to respect. Her presence tells everyone the rules have enforcers, which makes what Ren does next much harder to laugh off as ordinary bullying drama. Ren steps into that rule-bound world with people already recognizing him from the day before, so his reputation is moving faster than he can explain it. Instead of shrinking, he grabs a nearby student, lets his killing intent leak through, and turns a lunch offering into a threat dressed as generosity. Handing someone food has rarely sounded this much like a court summons. Then Ren openly uses magic on school grounds, and the academy's rulebook catches fire in real time. A student starts to protest that magic is prohibited, but Ren pushes further with Stonehammer, proving he is not asking permission from a system that already marked him as disposable. The attack throws students into chaos, and the sudden numbers that follow make the moment feel less like a scolding and more like a measurable power display. The display lands under the name Grim Eater, and that title reframes Ren from bullied student into something the Academy cannot neatly classify. As Ren channels that darker power, the point is clear. The Hidden Seeker's world wanted to study him from a distance, but now he has forced it to look directly at him. Whatever system connects Prince Shark, the Crest, and the Academy just gained a very loud problem. Ren's Grim Eater display detonates through the corridor, and the school order around him basically resigns on the spot. The students watching wanted a clean way to label him: weak kid, troublemaker, target, but now all they have is a smoking question mark with legs. Ren tries to leave before the crowd can turn his power into a committee meeting, but one of the students stops him because nobody gets to drop that kind of magic and stroll away like he only borrowed a pencil. Even the attention behind him shifts, which matters because Ren is no longer invisible, and being noticed at this academy is both useful and dangerous. Ren's side immediately wants to solve the insult the simple way, by beating the problem until it stops talking. Ren, carrying Leon's battle instincts inside a bullied student's body, tells Luna, his hidden companion, to stay out of sight because this duel is bait and he would rather not hand the enemy extra leverage. At the outdoor training grounds, the Academy's mock battle area where young mages test each other, the red-haired bully demands to know what Ren did earlier. Ren refuses to explain because the whole point is to make his enemies guess wrong while he measures how far they are willing to go. The red-haired bully challenges Ren to a one-on-one duel, pretending this is about teaching him manners. Ren accepts with one clean condition: if Ren wins, the bully leaves him alone, which turns the fight into more than pride. It becomes Ren's chance to cut off one daily chain from his old life. Ren ends the trash talk and invites the attack, forcing the red-haired bully to prove whether his confidence has anything behind it. The bully opens hard, but Ren answers without panic, and that first exchange proves the old script is dead. Pushing Ren around no longer gets a fear response. Then the red-haired bully reveals the duel was never fair and admits he lied about fighting alone. Ren does not flinch because he expected the cheap trick, which is honestly embarrassing for the ambusher. Imagine springing a trap and the victim already brought receipts. Ren turns the betrayal against them with a counter big enough to break their plan apart, but the blast still throws him off balance for a moment. That matters because Ren is powerful, not untouchable, and every forced recovery shows the Academy that his strength comes with control, not luck. Ren launches back into the fight before the red-haired bully can understand what changed, and the bully's confidence finally cracks. Ren lands above him and apologizes, not because he feels guilty, but because he is about to make the lesson permanent enough to remember. Ren declares that he will not forgive anyone who tries to stop him, and the duel shifts from schoolyard punishment into a warning to the entire hidden world watching him. The bully wanted to humble a weak student, but instead he has cornered someone carrying a decade of abyss-hardened magic inside him. The red-haired bully cannot even classify what Ren is using, which terrifies him more than losing. Academy magic is supposed to fit 4 familiar attributes: wind, water, fire, and earth. But Ren's power sits outside that lesson plan, and the syllabus does not come with a panic button. The bully finally asks the real question: since when can someone he called useless use magic like this? Ren's answer is not spoken yet, but his gaze says enough. The boy they bullied is gone, and whatever returned in his place is done asking permission. At the outdoor training grounds, Ren finally answers the red-haired bully's arrogance with contempt, not explanation. The bully wanted a weak student to beg, but Ren turns the duel into a public correction, and the lesson comes with 0 classroom handouts. Ren presses the attack until the bully's confidence breaks first, which matters more than the damage. The red-haired bully tries to understand what kind of magic is swallowing his mana, but Academy categories fail him right when he needs them most. Then the truth lands. Ren is using dark attribute magic, the forbidden kind that can rob another person of mana. The red-haired bully goes down because Ren is not merely stronger, he is fighting by rules the Academy barely dares to name. Inside Sacred Imperial Academy, the school that trains young mages and seekers, Ren's victory gets interrupted before anyone can process it. An evacuation alert cuts through the grounds because a gate has opened inside the Academy, which means this stops being a duel and becomes a survival problem. The Academy authorities rate the gate as Red 1, the highest threat category, so even trained students are told to run instead of playing hero. When monsters hit the broadcast room, the evacuation order becomes painfully literal, and the hallway stampede starts with all the dignity of a fire drill that brought teeth. Elsewhere in the Academy, Izumiya, the Academy president and the one with gate-sealing authority, refuses to wait while monsters keep pouring in. Her colleague tries to stop her, but Izumiya chooses the dangerous job anyway, because sealing the gate is the only move that can keep the disaster from spreading. The first major monster forces its way through before Izumiya can close the problem cleanly. She counters it, but the emergency has already outgrown school procedure, which means Ren has to enter the fight for real. Back near the gate threat, Ren engages the beast directly and proves the duel was only the warm-up. The academy wanted students evacuated from monsters, but Ren stands in the opposite lane, cutting into the disaster before it reaches everyone else. At the gate site, Izumiya, the academy president with the authority to seal gates, pours her power into containment while the evacuation still drags on. The problem is ugly. Students are not clear yet. The gate sits close enough to the city to turn one breach into a public disaster, and every second she spends sealing is a second monsters can flood through. The gate eruption worsens before Izumiya can finish the job, and the watching students realize this is no longer an academy drill with supervision and neat rules. Then Luna, Ren's hidden companion, enters the crisis herself, which means Ren finally has someone who can answer the question that matters. How do they shut this thing down? Luna manifests beside Ren and he makes his choice on the spot. He cannot walk away from a threat he already knows could become devastating. So instead of waiting for permission, Ren moves toward the gate with Luna, taking responsibility while everyone else is still trying to survive the evacuation. That is a very Ren solution. See catastrophe, skip paperwork, bring a sword. The first monster hits harder than expected, and for a moment, the fight punishes Ren for charging in before the field is controlled. He gets forced down under the beast's pressure, but that only pushes him into a stronger counter, turning a near mauling into proof that he can still answer raw danger with forbidden level power. When the blast clears, Ren stays standing, but the victory does not feel clean, and he recognizes something in the enemy presence through the aftermath. And that recognition matters more than the damage, because this gate invasion may be connected to a force he has seen before. The hostile presence refuses to fade like a normal defeated monster, and its confidence tells Ren this is not a random outbreak. By the time that grin appears somewhere away from the immediate chaos, the fight has shifted from monster control to a bigger warning. Someone dangerous may be watching the disaster unfold. Back at the gate battle, the crisis escalates into a new phase, as Ren and Izumiya face the monster that explains why their earlier breach felt so abnormal. A lava dragon emerges, and Ren is already on it, which tells Izumiya two things at once. The threat is high class, and Ren is moving faster than an ordinary student should. Ren warns Izumiya how the lava dragon fights, because surviving this thing is not about bravery. It is about reading its pattern before it burns the field apart. The dragon attacks with fire and its tail in constant pressure, so Ren turns the encounter into a tactical problem instead of a panic contest, which is exactly the kind of skill that gets officials asking uncomfortable questions later. The lava dragon keeps the pressure on with a fire attack big enough to punish one bad step, so Ren and Izumiya stop trying to outlast it and focus on surviving its rhythm. Izumiya still gets clipped hard, which proves Ren's warning was not paranoia. It was the difference between a plan and a barbecue menu. Ren immediately counterattacks to keep the dragon from turning her injury into the end of the fight. Izumiya catches on fast and admits Ren read the monster correctly, which matters because she stops treating him like a strange student and starts trusting his calls in real time. She answers with Icicle Lance, a spell meant to exploit a fire creature's weakness, and for a second the tactic looks beautifully simple. Sadly, the lava dragon did not read the beginner's guide. The ice spell lands, but the dragon's heat is so extreme that the obvious counter does not finish the job. Ren and Izumiya learn the ugly truth here. This is not a normal attribute matchup, and if they keep trading standard spells, the dragon can simply endure until they run out of room. Ren presses the fight anyway, forcing the lava dragon to defend instead of freely burning the field apart. That pressure creates the first real turn, because the dragon stops acting like an unstoppable monster and starts looking for distance. The moment it escapes upward, Ren knows the battlefield has changed from hunting a target to catching one. Ren complains that flying away is cheating, and honestly, if a giant fire lizard can leave the floor whenever it feels inconvenienced, that is rude paperwork. But the joke hides the problem. The lava dragon still controls the air, so Ren cannot finish it unless someone can slow it down long enough for him to act. Ren turns to Izumiya and asks whether she can use magic outside water, because the fight no longer needs more damage, it needs control. He asks for one brief slowdown, and Izumiya chooses to trust him again instead of demanding the whole plan in triplicate. Izumiya reveals wind attribute magic, and that changes her role from injured support to the one person who can take the dragon's escape route away. Her wind catches the lava dragon and pins its movement, proving Ren's real strength is not just power, it is using the exact ally in the exact gap the enemy leaves open. The lava dragon struggles under the spell, but this time it cannot simply fly out of trouble. A hidden ally reports to Leon that the lava dragon has stopped moving, which means Ren's plan has worked, and the monster that looked impossible to contain is finally trapped for the finishing move. Still in the ruined battle zone, Ren has gained the one opening he needed. Izumiya has grounded the lava dragon, so if he fails now, the monster gets back up and everyone pays for trusting his plan. He steps into the finish with Dark Attribute Magic, the forbidden tool that turns his borrowed knowledge into a real execution order. Ren does not waste the opening on a flashy test shot. He commits to ending the lava dragon while it cannot escape, and the attack tears through the creature hard enough to prove this was never a lucky gamble. It was a trap closing from the start. The lava dragon tries to endure the full punishment, but Ren keeps pressure on until its advantage is gone. By the time the magic fades, the terrifying boss of this disaster is no longer a flying catastrophe. It is a ruined problem lying on the ground, which is a much better shape for a problem to have. Ren's allies celebrate like the win was obvious, praising Leon's name because they still understand his power through the legend inside him. Ren finally exhales, and that breath says what the victory cost. He won cleanly, but he had to expose enough power that quiet retirement is now off the menu. Izumiya, the academy president with authority over the sealed gate, praises the result but immediately makes it clear this is not over. Ren answers by giving her credit for the win, which matters because he is not just showing strength now, he is proving he can build victories through allies instead of crushing everything alone. With the area safely returned and the nearby damage contained, the official mood flips from celebration to accountability. Ren saved everyone, but he also ignored orders in front of the people who can make his academy life very uncomfortable, which is the administrative version of a second boss fight with paperwork. Izumiya demands to know why Ren openly disobeyed her instruction, and she is not asking as a grateful teammate anymore. This is the consequence of Ren's method. He wins by making the right call fast, but authority still wants to know why a student thought he could overrule the chain of command. Back at the academy side of the aftermath, Luna, Ren's hidden companion, asks who the imposing man is, and she learns he is Shido, the headmaster of the Sacred Imperial Academy where young mages train to become seekers. That introduction matters because Ren's Dragonwind has pulled him directly under the gaze of the one school authority whose questions can reshape his future. The story then pivots into why Ren cannot afford that scrutiny. Before all this power, Ren was an exhausted student whose mind had been pushed close to breaking. His condition made him look like dead weight at an elite magic academy, and that weakness is exactly what gave Leon's will a body to fight from. Years earlier, at the Sacred Imperial Academy's outdoor training grounds, Ren's original problem becomes painfully simple. He has to prove himself in mock battles, but he admits he has no talent for magic. That means every challenge is not just a school exercise, it is a threat to his place at the academy, and Leon inside Ren has to turn a supposedly talentless kid into someone nobody can casually expel. Years earlier, at the Sacred Imperial Academy's outdoor training grounds, Ren gets challenged by a student who treats him less like a rival and more like lunch money with legs. Ren answers anyway, because if he keeps looking helpless in these mock battles, the academy has every excuse to throw him away. The fight knocks Ren into a darker truth. This school does not care how badly a student is struggling, only whether he can produce results. So Leon's will inside him locks onto the only answer that matters now, showing everyone exactly what they deserve when they underestimate the weakest ranked kid. After that, the academy starts looking at Ren's record with fresh suspicion, and the numbers are brutal. Magic exam, 1 out of 10. Output, 1 out of 10. On paper, Ren is a complete failure, which makes his sudden survival instinct look impossible instead of inspiring. That contradiction becomes the real problem. Ren is supposed to be the lowest ranked student in the academy, so any sign that he can fight back threatens the neat little box everyone put him in. The observers cannot accept it, because if Ren is not useless, then the academy's judgment of him may be wrong, and institutions hate being corrected by a kid with a terrible report card. Naruto Shuya, the Sacred Imperial Academy Student Council Vice President, approaches Ren with the polite tone of someone about to be extremely unpleasant. He makes it clear he does not believe in Ren at all, because a student who has never won a mock battle has no credibility in his eyes. When Naruto Shuya walks away, Izumiya, the academy president tied to the student council's authority, notices the tension and pulls Ren toward the next official meeting. Her question about what Naruto Shuya said matters, because Ren's private humiliation is turning into academy business, which is somehow worse than being insulted in a hallway. At the student council meeting, the academy authority finally says the quiet part out loud. Ren should drop out because students with no talent in magic have no future here. That turns his weakness into an official expulsion threat, so Ren searches for a loophole instead of begging. Ren proposes the only deal that can save him. If he wins every mock battle, the academy must cancel his expulsion. The authority accepts out of pity, which is a generous way of saying he thinks Ren is volunteering for public demolition. Ren stays calm because Leon inside him understands the shape of the challenge now. Victory is not about pride. It is the price of keeping this body inside the academy. With the matches decided, Ren prepares to prove that the so-called weakest student is carrying something the school has not measured yet. Back in Ren's dorm room, after the challenge is set, the pressure finally narrows to the one person he can confide in, Luna, his hidden companion who knows there is more to him than bad grades. Ren keeps close because his mission has two fronts now: survive the academy system in Ren's place, and keep building enough power for Leon's revenge against Prince Shark. In the dorm hallway, Ren walks away from the expulsion threat while Luna pushes back, arguing that throwing out a student over bad exam scores is insane even for an elite academy. Ren thanks her for worrying, but he refuses to beg Naruto Shuya, the academy authority tied to the expulsion order, for mercy. If the school wants proof, Ren chooses to give them proof in public, which is a bold strategy for a guy officially filed under complete disaster. Inside Ren's dorm room, he finally tells Luna the real reason he cannot leave. Staying at the Sacred Imperial Academy keeps him close to Prince Shark's trail. Luna wonders if this whole path is tied to a divine order, but Ren's answer is more practical than holy. The academy is useful, so he is staying. Ren lays out the mission clearly for Luna, his hidden companion. He has to crush Prince Shark's scheme and defeat Belfar, the demon lord threat tied to Leon's old life. Luna apologizes, but Ren shuts that down gently, and her worry turns into fuel as she tells him to show the tyrannical headmaster what he can really do. The Academy thinks this is a school punishment. Ren and Luna know it is the first step toward dragging a much older enemy into the light. At the outdoor training grounds now, the Academy begins the mock battles, the public test meant to decide whether Ren deserves to remain among young mages and seekers. Ren's first opponent gets cocky the second he sees the so-called loser in front of him, bragging that he drew the student who has never won a match. Ren stays calm and says he will end it in one attack, which is either confidence or the shortest resignation letter ever written. The opponent attacks first, or Ren answers so fast that the match flips before the crowd can process it. He uses Earth attribute magic, finishes with Rock Blast, and the student who came in laughing gets launched straight into regret. The official declares Ren the winner, and just like that, the Academy's weakest label takes its first serious dent. The wins keep stacking after that, and Ren cuts through the gauntlet without needing the dark attribute magic that would expose too much of Leon's forbidden power. Luna notices his activation speed is absurd, and she understands what the crowd does not yet. Leon's true ability is starting to leak through Ren's body. For the Academy, this is an upset. For Ren, it is controlled disclosure. Then Ren reaches Narusa, a gate conqueror strong enough that beating him should be impossible for a student with Ren's record. Ren still lands the deciding blow, wins again, and the officials stare at the bracket as the impossible pattern becomes undeniable. The incompetent student who never won a single match is now winning one after another, which means the Academy has not been judging weakness, it has been failing to recognize power. At the outdoor training grounds, the Academy's mock battle arena, Narusa Shuya, the vice president who helps enforce Academy order, realizes Ren is no longer a student they can treat casually. When someone asks if something is wrong, Narusa Shuya says there is no backup plan against Ren, because he has studied every one of Ren's recent matches and spotted the pattern. Ren keeps winning while showing almost nothing except earth magic. That means Ren is not just improving, he is managing what the Academy is allowed to see, which is a very rude thing to do to people with clipboards. Narusa Shuya questions why Shido, the headmaster with shady connections, sounds so cautious about Ren, but the answer lands right in front of him. Ren wins again, and the announcement makes the impossible official. The student everyone wrote off has taken another match. Every victory now turns Ren's old reputation into evidence that the Academy badly misread him. The spectators start catching up, whispering that Ren has not lost a single match all month, while Luna, Ren's hidden companion, pushes him to keep going so Shido has no excuse to expel him. This is not about tournament pride for Ren, it is survival inside the Academy, and another step toward rebuilding Leon's stolen power. The crowd sees a winning streak, Ren sees an expulsion order getting squeezed until it cracks. Then the bracket gives Ren the match that matters, Ren against Narusa Shuya himself. Narusa Shuya warns him not to get drunk on recent wins, but Ren answers with cold honesty, saying he is not happy about winning, he simply needs to win. That answer hits harder than boasting, because it tells Narusa Shuya this kid is not chasing applause, he is executing a plan. Narusa Shuya stops treating Ren like a lucky student, and decides to punish that resolve head on. He powers up and promises to make Ren regret choosing this path, turning the match from a school test into a public challenge to Ren's entire comeback. For Ren, losing here means Shido's expulsion threat survives, and his carefully controlled rise gets cut short in front of everyone. The Academy's evaluation data frames Narusa Shuya as a serious obstacle, not some warm-up victim in a nicer uniform. His status and rank information make the gap obvious, and the number on display only adds pressure as Ren stands across from someone the system already respects. It is the exact kind of official measurement Ren has been quietly embarrassing all month. Narusa Shuya's suspicion sharpens as he studies Ren mid-fight, wondering whether Ren hid his real abilities on purpose while stacking consecutive wins to draw the right kind of attention. So he tests Ren with higher-level force, trying to expose whether Ren's Earth-only pattern is a limit or a lie. Ren answers without panic, which is the worst possible news for Narusa Shuya. Narusa Shuya presses the exchange hard enough to blast Ren backward, but that only forces Ren to reveal the next layer of control. Ren switches into Earth attribute magic and turns the arena itself into a weapon, proving his earlier pattern was not weakness, it was restraint. The ground doing your homework for you is unfair, but Ren is very much accepting late submissions. Narusa Shuya looks up and realizes Ren has shifted the fight from strength against strength into a trap he has to survive. Before he can fully reset, Ren follows with another attribute, and detonates the match's assumptions all at once. This is the turn the Academy cannot ignore. Ren is not a one-attribute underdog. He is carrying multi-attribute power far beyond what their records predicted. When the aftermath settles, Narusa Shuya understands the danger more clearly. Ren has used attribute magic in a way that may give him the advantage even against an Academy authority figure. The watching group reacts in shock because Ren has not merely won matches anymore. He has revealed enough power to make the whole school reconsider what he is. And for Ren, that public proof is exactly the leverage he needs against Shido's expulsion order. Narusa Shuya, the Academy vice president, trying to shut Ren down, forces himself to calm down because the official read on Ren is still simple. The kid should only have earth magic. So Narusa Shuya chooses to punish that assumption directly, and turns Ren's own supposed specialty into a field-wide counter, with Rock Shower doing the very rude job title says on the label. But Ren does not break under the Earth Barrage, which is the first real problem for Narusa Shuya. Ren answers with aerial magic, wipes out the pressure, and the students finally understand this is not a lucky underdog surviving one trick. This is Ren repeatedly countering an academy authority in public. That matters, because in this world, most wizards cannot freely use multiple attributes, so Ren is not merely winning a mock battle, he is violating the academy's common sense. Shuya says Ren's name like he is trying to make the records behave, then admits the problem out loud. Ren should not be able to use anything except earth magic. His pride twists that shock into contempt, as the only person he truly acknowledges is Izumiya, the academy president with gate-sealing authority, and Shuya has been clawing his way closer to her standard. Ren answers that arrogance with Shuya's own specialty, high-rank water attribute magic. That is the turn that cracks the room open, because now Ren is not showing 2 attributes by accident, he is proving 3 on command, and Shuya can only stare at the impossible while Ren calmly makes it worse by saying he is not limited to 3. Ren stops playing defense and pours even more attributes into one decisive finish, which means the gauntlet has become a public execution of the expulsion case against him. Shuya can watch, but he cannot explain Ren away anymore, and Ren drives the final attack down to end the match on the one point Shido's side cannot dodge. This bullied student is far beyond the academy's expectations. Ren keeps pushing until the arena stops looking like a test and starts looking like proof that Shuya picked the wrong student to corner. When the 4th attribute finally shows up, Naruse can only stare, because this isn't talent anymore, it's a public demolition of the academy's whole case against Ren. Back in the final exchange, Ren steadies himself through the strain and turns the pressure back on Naruse, instead of letting the power eat him alive. He still has to pay for every second he holds that many attributes together, but that cost is exactly what makes the win real. He is forcing magic beyond the academy's ceiling and making it look deliberate. The finish lands, and Naruse goes down with no more excuses left to hide behind. Ren stands over him long enough for everyone watching to understand the point of the match. The bullied kid is no longer a rumor or a mistake, he's an opponent the academy cannot explain away. That victory immediately turns into a problem for the people trying to keep Ren in a box, because Naruse's shock spreads faster than the result itself. When the records are checked, the real issue becomes obvious. Ren is being treated like an attribute user who should not exist, and the paperwork starts screaming before anybody else does. With Shido's side rattled, Ren finally gets a little breathing room to think about his next move. He knows winning one fight is not enough, so he starts planning around the bigger threat at the academy. The gates are getting worse, and if he can control that pressure, he can force the people above him to move on his terms. Because Ren is already making plans to trap the next crisis, the story resets into everyday academy life and throws in a new face to shake up the room. Hashiba Kaisuke walks in as the handsome newcomer who introduces himself properly, which matters because fresh arrivals usually mean trouble, alliance, or both, and Ren has every reason to watch him closely. That new tension hangs over the class as the academy keeps moving because the gate problem is no longer just Ren's private concern. If the seals fail or the wrong people get involved, this whole school turns into the kind of place where his revenge plan and everyone else's safety get tangled together fast. Hashiba Keisuke, the handsome new student everybody is suddenly talking about, asks the class to go easy on him because he knows exactly how fast a fresh face can become gossip fuel. That lands him in the sweet spot between ally and problem, which is usually where the interesting people start. The cafeteria chatter swirls from Hashiba's looks to the mock battle Ren just survived, and the real takeaway is simple. His fight already changed how people see him. One student even admits the frustration got through to him, while another calls out how unreasonable that attitude was. So the academy's social pressure keeps doing half the fighting for Ren. Then the mood hardens, because the academy's secrets stop being rumors and start sounding like a warning. Shido, the headmaster with former Seeker's ties, has the kind of shady connections people whisper about only when they think nobody important is listening. And with Gates appearing more often lately, that rumor suddenly matters a lot more than cafeteria drama. The fear gets personal when a student declares that monsters could destroy the world, and that she will not let them have their way. Ren answers with the same stubborn fire, because if gates keep opening, this stops being about reputation and becomes about survival. Even his answer is a promise. He is done letting anyone else decide when the next disaster hits. Back in the present, Leon and Luna head out to patrol and check whether another gate appears today, because every quiet day is just the gap before the next ugly mess. Luna points out that Leon has been clearing nearby gates almost as soon as they open, which means his revenge plan and the academy's safety are already the same job now. The patrol pushes into a forest gate, and Luna warns Leon to stay sharp because the deeper they go, the less forgiving the place gets. The clearing they reach is already littered with dead monsters, which tells Leon this gate was not empty at all, just waiting for the right prey to wander in. Deep inside that underworld pocket, Leon and Luna find the real trick. The place looks empty because something is hiding where the eye can't catch it yet. Luna starts to channel power, Leon braces, and the whole setup shifts from search mission to ambush because whatever is down there has already decided they are the intruders. The attacker hits first, snatching Luna before she can fully recover, and now Leon has a simple problem with terrible stakes. Save her fast or watch the ambush turn into a meal. The creature's ugly face makes the threat plain enough, and Luna still tries to talk back even while it tries to eat her, because apparently manners survive longer than common sense. Leon tells Luna not to move and commits to the only answer that matters here, a counterattack strong enough to break the monster's grip before it can finish the job. He drives his magic straight through it, and the fight turns on that single decision. Hesitation would cost Luna, but force gives him back control. Leon is already deep in the save, and he finishes the monster before it can crush Luna, because letting her get dragged under here would turn a rescue into a funeral. The kill lands hard, and the whole point of this fight becomes obvious. Leon still moves like a man who has survived hell and learned to answer ambushes before they finish breathing. Back in the clearing, after the monster drops, Luna thanks Leon for saving her, and he does the rare heroic thing of sounding relieved instead of smug. She is stunned by how fast he fired that spell, so he admits the truth. Years in hell trained his instincts to react first and ask questions never, which is a very efficient way to become emotionally unavailable. Now that the immediate threat is gone, Leon catches something off-screen and goes from calm to hunting in one breath, because the real danger is not the dead creature but whoever was watching the attack from the dark. He launches after the intruder, and that choice shifts the scene from cleanup to pursuit. At the rooftop, Ren orders Luna to hide because this enemy is skilled, and that warning tells her this is no random thug but someone worth fearing. He challenges the masked attacker anyway, demanding a name and a reason, because if this is tied to the larger conspiracy, he needs the truth as much as the win. The masked opponent refuses to explain himself and answers with ruthless dark magic instead, forcing Ren to survive the opening barrage rather than trade questions like a civilized person. Ren gets swallowed by the blast, realizes the enemy is stronger than the first monster, and still turns the pressure into an opening, which proves he can think inside the fire instead of just flinching in it. The attacker then reveals the real threat he brings to the table: dark attribute magic, the kind of power that turns a simple fight into a warning sign. He launches Grim, Ren answers with everything he has, and the clash leaves the outcome hanging on whether Ren's determination can punch through a foe who clearly expected to finish him here. Ren is still inside the worst part of the ambush when the attacker reveals the truth of his power. This is dark attribute magic, the kind of thing that turns a clean rescue into a mess of smoke, pain, and bad decisions. The blast rips through the area, leaves Ren buried and hurting, and the guy realizes he cannot win by standing his ground, so he does the smart thing for once and gets out alive. Back with Leon and Luna, the immediate danger has passed, but the night is still nasty enough to leave everyone on edge, so Luna checks Leon and he brushes it off like he does not have time to die yet. Leon then looks down at the damage and starts connecting the dots, because this attack is not random trouble anymore. It is part of a bigger pattern. Elsewhere in the academy, Ren shifts from survival mode into investigation mode, sitting with Luna and admitting the attacker is still unknown, which means he has no clean target yet. He tightens up, closes his eyes, and basically decides he is going to wring the truth out of whoever is behind this, which is a polite way of saying the next person lying to him is in trouble. Before Ren can finish that thought, a formal hunter comes in and brings the real bad news. Ren already made a name for himself by clearing a category red gate alone, and that kind of achievement attracts people with agendas. At the same time, the enemy side is already moving on their own board, with a wounded attacker vowing revenge, checking his device and realizing he cannot afford to underestimate Ren twice. That warning turns into action fast. Green power surges. One side rushes to intercept, and the situation explodes into a larger hunt, as both the academy and the conspirators scramble to keep control of the target before he slips outside the gate and disappears into the city. Hashiba Kisuke, the academy pretty boy who keeps looking harmless until he absolutely isn't, gets exposed the second Ren sees through his cover. Ren has already learned enough to know this fight is not random, because a guy who changes tactics, hides injuries, and moves like he's scouting a target is never just a student on a stroll. Ren immediately calls him out by name, and that is the real punch here. Hashiba Keisuke expected to stay anonymous, but Ren has already dug into his routine, spotted the right arm injury from their first battle, and connected it to the homing magic he used yesterday, which means Hashiba's whole disguise collapses in one ugly sentence. Back in the present, the fight stops being a stealth game and turns into a warning label, because Ren asks whether Hashiba has found his resolve yet. That question lands right before a masked enforcer, the kind of oversized problem nobody wants walking into a campus, steps in and starts laughing at the idea that a student can stand in his way. The masked man answers Ren's challenge by trying to erase the argument with raw force, and that tells Ren exactly what he is dealing with: someone who thinks experience is the same thing as inevitability. Hashiba gets shoved into a firestorm, and the environment starts paying the price too, which means this is no longer about one target getting away. It is about whether Ren can stop a full-scale purge before the whole area burns. As the attack tightens, the masked man stays unnervingly calm in the middle of all that chaos, and reminds everyone why he is dangerous. He has killed more than 1,000 monsters, so he is not bluffing about power or stamina. Ren does not get to breathe, because Hashiba is still trapped in the center of the assault, and the enemy is confident enough to keep talking while he squeezes the noose tighter. Ren turns the tables by surviving the masked man's supposedly unstoppable fire magic, and that shatters the attacker's confidence in one hit. The guy who was bragging about killing 1,000 monsters now looks sick, because Ren answers with the kind of power that makes every threat in the room feel flimsy. Back in the same ruined stretch, Ren keeps walking like the damage around him is somebody else's problem, then needles the masked attacker with the truth. This wasn't some grand showcase, just intermediate ranked magic. That little insult matters, because it proves Ren is not only stronger, he is calm enough to measure his enemy while the man is falling apart. Still in the aftermath, Leon steps in and keeps the pressure on a helpless captive, because he wants the name behind the ambush, not just a win. When the captive finally cracks and ties the attack to Shido, Leon realizes the ugly part. The people closing gates are not his allies. They are standing in the way of his revenge and his bigger plan. Later that night, outside the grand building in the rain, Leon shows up with the ring that proves he is not just drifting through academy politics anymore. He is being folded into a new game with formal rules, and the next few beats make it clear he hates the atmosphere, but has to play along if he wants access to what matters. Inside the villain's meeting room, the adults start by confirming the plan is moving, because whatever they have set in motion around the academy is already in motion, and they want to status check before they go any further. Then the conversation turns to Ren, the dark-haired student they keep underestimating, and the mood changes fast once they realize he is growing far more quickly than expected. The first real alarm hits when they admit Ren can now use 4 attributes, which means he is no longer just a bullied kid surviving by luck. That kind of growth makes him dangerous, so one of them casually says an assassin is already on the job, like that solves everything. In the same room, a masked woman and another observer press for more details, and the smug confidence starts to wobble under basic questions. The problem is simple. If Ren really is this strong, then a single cleanup job can fail, and that turns him from a target into a future headache. Now the trap starts showing its teeth. The masked woman senses the gap in the story. The man panics when the assassin still has not reported back, and suddenly everyone in the room can feel the plan slipping out of their hands. Meanwhile, the blackmailer on the other end of the chain is dealing with a failed connection and realizing Ren may have already wrecked one of their pieces. That forces them to stop thinking like schemers and start thinking like people trying not to lose the board. Back at the next layer of the conspiracy, another man opens an ornate box and decides the academy students are nothing more than bait, because the experiment matters more to him than any of them do. He only gets bolder when he convinces himself the wizard on their side is strong enough to justify the gamble. The plan gets uglier from there, and the smile on the conspirator's face says he enjoys that part a little too much. When he volunteers to handle the next phase himself, it stops sounding like a meeting and starts sounding like a hunt. Then the operation drops into motion over a magic sigil, and the timing tells you this is the moment they have been waiting for. Fire comes out, the ritual advances, and the reason for all the secrecy finally snaps into focus. They are pushing the experiment forward before anyone can stop it. At the end of the chain, one of them offers a polished apology and explains the real excuse for all this dirty behavior. Gates are appearing more often, so they need to keep the pressure on. That is the lie they use to sound reasonable while setting up a Blackgate disaster, and the final line makes it clear they expect backup to keep the whole mess alive. Back in the present, Ren is already inside the kind of scheme that gets people killed, and he chooses the smarter move first. He smiles, accepts the mission, and pretends to play along while he reads the room. The villains think they are steering him, but Ren has decided to watch them instead, because if they are this eager, they are hiding the real trap behind the paperwork. That suspicion pays off immediately when the seal springs to life and proves Ren was right about the setup. He calls it out, the woman beside him confirms the gates are too important to ignore, and the whole conversation flips from polite cooperation to open suspicion. Ren knows the deception is already in motion, and the others try to keep their composure while the lie is still standing. The woman refuses to back down and says she has a plan, which tells Ren this isn't just a bluff, it's a coordinated move with a second layer underneath. Even the spirit watching her can tell she is not breaking, so Ren agrees to keep moving, because stopping now would only hand the enemy the tempo. That's the real danger here. Once they commit, every extra word is just fuel for the trap. Then the scene shifts into motion around a decision that sounds noble on the surface and messy underneath. Someone says he has decided to become a wizard after all, and the follow-up makes it clear this isn't about ambition so much as stubborn survival, with past memories of the journey to defeat the Demon King pushing the choice forward. Ren stands there, realizing this person is drawing strength from companionship, not from some grand speech, which is honestly more effective than half the Academy's recruitment posters. Now the trap turns physical, and Ren gets hit with the kind of magical pressure that stops talk cold. The power swells, the situation goes from awkward to violent, and Ren is caught in the middle of a transformation he did not ask for, but clearly has to endure. This is the point where the villains stop pretending the mission is ordinary and start forcing the issue with raw force. Back in the same instant, the attack tightens around Ren and Izumiya, and the whole setup reveals its real purpose. She is bait. Ren grabs her as the energy closes in, shouts her name, and reaches out anyway, because saving Izumiya matters more to him than proving he spotted the trick early. That choice tells you everything about him. He can smell the ambush, but he still runs straight into it if someone he can protect is on the line. The trap hits full force, with the assault piling on until Ren is driven flat and the pressure only gets uglier from there. Then the Black Gate appears, and Ren finally understands why this ambush feels so wrong. This was never just about delaying him, it was about dragging him into a disaster zone. He starts to shift from analysis to rescue mode, because now the only thing that matters is getting Izumiya out before the gate eats the whole situation alive. The ambush finally shows its real face. The villain is laughing, because the whole setup was never about winning cleanly, only about trapping Izumiya and using her as bait. Now Ren sees the goal behind the garbage theatrics, and that makes the situation worse, not better, because the Black Gate is here to turn a hostage grab into a disaster. Back in the chaos around the gate, Ren keeps the monsters off him long enough to read the battlefield, but the pressure keeps climbing because the enemy is still throwing bodies at him, while Izumiya stays trapped. The big red beast crashes in, so now this is no longer a simple rescue job. It is a race against a monster swarm that wants to bury the entire plan before he even reaches her. Ren does the smart thing and grabs help instead of trying to be a hero alone, and the black-haired mage with glasses steps up with the kind of lightning that says he knows how to buy time. When Ren admits he is not the best person for the rescue, that is the turn. Power alone is not enough here, and the mission needs the one person who can actually get Izumiya out alive. The bespectacled man then throws himself into the monster line and tells the creatures he is their problem now, which gives Ren and Luna the opening they need. That handoff matters because it proves the rescue is bigger than one fighter, and if the front line breaks, nobody gets to pretend this was ever a controlled operation. On the other side of the storm, Leon is already moving with Luna, and their run through the dark proves they are chasing the same crisis from a different angle. Leon pushes her to keep pace, because every second the gate stays open is another second the bait and switch gets uglier. Leon hits a wall of violent magic and gets knocked back, but he treats that like a nuisance instead of a warning sign, which is exactly the kind of confidence that comes from surviving hell for 10 years. He then calls on Dark Attribute magic and brings out Calamity's Scythe, the enticer to the underworld, because now the rescue turns into a real fight and the beast has officially asked for trouble. With the scythe active, Leon stops playing defense and starts carving a path through the red beast's pressure, and the whole point is simple. He is forcing the monster to back off before it can bury the rescue party. The weapon gives him the edge, but it also reveals the cost of this battle, because he has to spend serious power just to keep the path open long enough to matter. Someone nearby brushes off the weaker threats and sends up a purple blade, then orders the battlefield to open, which shows the defenders are no longer asking permission to survive. Even so, the last word comes from the enemy side, and the failure to capture Ren means the trap is already slipping out of their hands. Ren and Luna push deeper, because the rescue only works if they reach the worst part of this nest before the monsters grind everyone down. That's why the defenders are already talking like survivors instead of heroes, because the plan is no longer to win cleanly, just to keep the path open long enough to matter. Inside the deepest chamber, the real problem finally shows itself. A monster that does not just hit back, but traps its prey and feeds while they panic. Leon stays calm for a breath, which matters because if he loses his head here, the thing wins without even needing to fight properly. Leon realizes this creature is worse than a local threat, because something like this outside the dungeon would turn into a slaughterhouse. The thought snaps the rescue into urgency, and Luna immediately does the other important thing, which is worry about Ren still getting out alive, like he is not the type to charge straight into trouble for sport. Luna refuses to freeze, but the monster strips her magic away before she can mount a proper defense, so courage alone stops being enough. She finally understands the horror of it. This thing is not just restraining people, it is draining their mana while they are still conscious enough to know what is happening. Then Ren cuts in and says the part nobody in that chamber can afford to doubt: he is not letting the monster keep feeding. That single interruption flips the fight from helpless restraint to active rescue, because once Ren arrives, the creature has to deal with somebody who actually came prepared to break its grip. Back in the rescue line, Ren arrives late enough to apologize to Izumiya, which is hilarious in the exact way only a guy sprinting through a disaster can manage. He follows that up with a much more important message. He has seen enough to know the enemy has escalated, and the Academy crowd is about to learn whether their classifications mean anything when a real monster shows up. The trap finally springs, and the enemy thinks it has the whole room counted as dead already. Inside the gate, Ren drops in too late for comfort, but just in time to stop that smug little victory lap from becoming a funeral. Back in the fight, Ren sees what is really at stake. The tentacle creature is feeding on Izumiya, the Academy president who is trying to hold the line while getting drained dry. Leon spots the same problem, and Ren realizes this thing is nothing like the enemies he knows from the other world, which means brute force alone may not be enough. So Ren does the only sensible thing a terrified genius can do. He refuses to panic and charges anyway. He aims at the monster's body instead of wasting time on the tentacles, because if he gets dragged into a ground hit, he is finished, and he knows it. The first rush looks like a win, but the creature is still standing, which kills the easy answer fast. Ren gets clipped, shrugs off the hit, and realizes this fight is not about one clean strike. It is about surviving long enough to find the thing's real weak point. Then the monster turns the pressure up and starts attacking from every angle, forcing Ren into a pure contest of reflex and nerve. He answers by staying mobile and hitting back hard enough to make the creature writhe, proving he can keep pace even when the thing tries to overwhelm him with sheer reach. Outside the creature's reach, the adults can see the real problem clearly. Leon has been fighting non-stop. Izumiya is running out of strength, and going straight for the main body is exactly how someone gets swallowed alive. That is the setup for Ren's next move, because if he wants to end this cleanly, he needs a technique that can chew through the monster's defense instead of politely asking it to stop. Grim Eater is about to enter the chat, and the tentacle thing is not going to enjoy that meeting. Ren keeps the pressure on, because this creature only wins if it drains him down before he can cut through its core. The thing answers with brute force, and when his first push fails, he still bites back with the kind of stubbornness that says he is not leaving this swamp alive. Back at the edge of the battlefield, Izumiya sees the real danger clearly. The creature is closing in on its main body, and if Ren gets pinned there, even a good plan turns into a coffin. So the whole fight tightens around one question. Can he land a finish before the monster makes him eat the ground again? Ren stops pretending normal magic will solve this and reaches for the dark power he has been saving for exactly this kind of problem. Then he unleashes Grim Eater, a forbidden-style answer built to devour the enemy instead of trading blows with it, which is the sort of move you use when subtlety has already failed you and the monster is still hungry. Grim Eater tears into the creature and changes the whole tempo of the fight, because now the thing that was feeding on everyone else has to deal with getting eaten back. The immediate cost is clear too. Ren is not just swinging harder, he is spending real forbidden power to force an end to a battle that would otherwise grind him to dust. With the main threat collapsing, the battle breaks open into smaller moments of survival and relief, and Izumiya finally gets a second to breathe. Someone checks on her, she answers shakily, and her relief shows that Ren's move bought the Academy enough time to keep the nightmare from swallowing everyone whole. That win triggers the bigger crack in the system, because once the Black Gates start vanishing, the people using them lose their grip on the whole mess. In the aftermath, the hidden ring scheme comes into view, and the smug confidence around it starts turning into panic as everyone realizes Ren has not just beaten a monster, he has exposed the machinery behind it. The last part lands like a sentence. The corrupt planner has no excuse left, and the moment he tries to hang his next move on Izumiya, Ren's side of the conflict makes the moral line brutally clear. By the end, the target is not just defeated, he is condemned as irredeemable, which sets Ren up as the one person in the room willing to turn this conspiracy into punishment. Ren's fight takes a nasty turn when he finally sees the mark on his own body for what it is. Proof that the enemy has already been inside his business, using a planted spell to jump straight to him. That means this was never just a random ambush, and the shadow from earlier was not a coincidence at all. Back at the core of the conspiracy, the corrupt planner admits what the Academy has really been doing. He built a wizard training institute as a front, not to educate anyone, but to manufacture food for the monsters sealed behind a gate, which makes the whole operation sound less like policy and more like a feeding schedule. He stops pretending this is about survival and says the quiet part out loud, the chaos is the point, because chaos lets him grab power and authority for himself. Ren answers the way a cornered hero should, calling him absolute scum and refusing to treat this as anything but a crime. Then the scale of the problem jumps again as a far stronger force cuts in and warns that if the enemy dies here, the whole plan collapses with him. The moment that threat hangs over the burning building, Ren has to endure the pressure and keep fighting instead of letting the corrupt planner escape into the smoke. Ren gets the real answer to why his attacks keep failing. This opponent's magic drops dead the second it reaches him. That turns the fight from a brute force brawl into a test of who can outlast and outthink the other, because the planner still believes raw power will erase Ren before anyone can stop him. The Dark Attribute spell finally tells Ren what kind of enemy he is dealing with, and it gives him the opening to push the fight past simple brute force. If that shadow magic can swallow the Academy's whole mess, then the planner behind it is hiding something a lot uglier than a classroom scam. In the burning wreckage, the planner tries to overwhelm Ren with raw pressure, but our boy refuses to fold and keeps reading the fight instead of panic. That stubbornness matters, because this is no longer about surviving one attack, it is about exposing the scheme feeding monsters through those rings and cutting the whole thing off at the source. Ren wins the exchange by understanding the real trick. The rings can open a gate, but they do not save the man wearing them, so the corrupt planner collapses under his own confidence. Ren leaves him behind with zero mercy, and that cost the planner the last shred of control he thought he still had. The planner's body does not just fall apart, it changes, which means Ren's easy victory was never the end of the problem. A higher power is still moving behind him, and Ren immediately has to face that the thing he just beat was only a pawn. The moment that truth lands, Shark's shadow cuts into the story through the old wound of the murdered children, and the revenge target is no longer some distant memory. Back in the present, Ren also sees that the crackdown has not solved anything, because once one piece is taken, the rest of the board keeps moving. Ren doesn't back off from the nightmare in front of him. He answers it with a hard, simple promise. Bring it on, because he is not letting Shark vanish into the dark again. Back in the present, the memory of Shark hits harder than any lecture ever could, because this is no longer just revenge in theory. Ren knows exactly who he is hunting, and that makes the whole game personal again. The system window then lays out the rank and team data like a cold receipt for everything that has changed, and Ren sees how much bigger this mess is than one enemy. Even the image of the skull and the line about this being the end only sharpen the threat. Somebody wants this story to finish on their terms, not his. Shark answers through Leon's memory, naming him outright and then dragging the murdered children back into the room. That cruel little speech matters because it confirms the target is still active and still rotten enough to smile while talking about heaven. The memory turns brutal fast, with one child still smiling while the man below her carries the mark of the attack. Ren is being shown the cost of Shark's power, and it is the kind of cost that makes revenge stop feeling abstract. Ren finally stops staring at the wound and turns back toward the fight ahead. When he growls that Shark had better wait, it is not bravado. It is a promise that he is carrying forward instead of freezing in the past. A new phase starts inside the academy, where a young man stands his ground while a confident newcomer in red starts talking like he already owns the room. This is the bridge from raw revenge into the politics of power, because Ren's next move is going to depend on who is willing to stand beside him. Headmaster Genis Coleman steps in as the man who can open doors, and he makes it plain that his organization only gathers the best wizards. Izumiya and the others hear what that really means. Talent alone is not enough, because the people running Gatework want proven results, not hopeful resumes. Coleman then spells out the bigger structure behind all of this, explaining that Saber is the group that handles the gates appearing around the world. That turns the story outward, because Ren is no longer just surviving academy life. He is being pulled toward the system that actually manages the disaster. When Coleman addresses Kurobane-kun directly, the invitation becomes personal instead of political. Ren answers in kind, which means he is stepping into higher-level gatework on purpose now, not by accident. Saber is short on manpower, which is the real problem under all the fancy gate talk. The people meant to handle these disasters simply do not have enough hands. Ren answers from the academy side that nothing has gone wrong here yet, and if a gate does appear, they should still be able to manage it, which tells us this new alliance is already building toward fieldwork instead of theory. Then the warning turns into a nightmare, because a black gate appears and the scale of the threat stops being academic for anybody in the room. The explanation is blunt. If the monsters inside break out, hundreds of thousands of lives are on the line. So this is the kind of disaster that can swallow a city whole in one bad day. From that danger, the request becomes official. The red-suited Saberman asks Ren and his companion to help deal with the gates. And then he says the quiet part out loud. They have the skill to conquer a black gate, not just survive near one. That matters because Saber is not recruiting warm bodies anymore. It is choosing people who can actually win. Back with the formal agreement in place, the three-way handshake seals Ren's entry into higher-level gatework. The woman on the side calls him uncle, which makes the whole exchange feel less like a cold contract and more like a family-linked alliance nobody in the room wants to explain too loudly. Outside the gate corridor now, the team gets hit with a fresh alert because something red is showing up where it should not be. That warning matters because it tells Ren the next phase is no longer about paperwork or promises. It is about moving fast before the gate turns into a bigger disaster. Still in the same corridor, the others trade a quick decision and settle the practical problem. If Ren's group goes in, someone has to handle whatever happens outside the gate. That gives the alliance its shape, with one team going deep while the rest stays behind to cover the fallout. Then the gate activates for real, and the whole mission shifts from discussion to combat. Ren moves in with the others. Narasuya, a gate conqueror joining the expedition, steps in beside them, and the third fighter shows up too. So this is no longer a solo test, but a coordinated push into a dangerous space. Inside the gate now, the first victory lands hard enough to build trust instead of just survival. They clear it with 3 people for the first time, and Ren connects that feeling to Headmaster Genis's lesson and to his Old World's lesson too. People fight harder when they trust the person next to them. Nice little miracle, considering this group met most of its problems by running straight at them. The victory does not last, because the arena is suddenly swarming with enemies, and the team has to defend itself again. Ren is identified as the main threat from the opening move, which means their growing reputation is already making them the target instead of the newcomers. And that is how a clan starts to matter. Once the fights get bigger, so do the eyes on you. The arena fight turns from a clean clear into a real siege when Ren's team has to stop a fresh wave of crystalline minions from overwhelming them. That matters because the victory is no longer about showing off. It's about surviving long enough to prove they can hold a field together. Just when the defense starts working, a tougher beast breaks through with that ugly mix of red eyes and blue armor, and Ren realizes the easy part is over. He spots the weak point fast, because if this thing stays standing, the whole team gets dragged into a very short and very stupid ending. Ren answers by pushing lightning through his body and turning the opening in the armor into a kill shot. The point is not just that he wins, it is that he sees the monster's core weakness under pressure, which is exactly the kind of instincts the Academy starts paying attention to. Back in the arena, Leon gets the next warning before the bats can swarm the party, so this is no longer one clean boss fight, but a race to stop the battlefield from snowballing. He answers with brute force anyway, because when a swarm starts merging, hesitation just hands it a bigger body. After the last boss drops, the mood finally shifts from panic to respect, and Leon's allies admit out loud what the fight already proved. He carries the whole battle when things go wrong. One thanks him, another apologizes for being too slow, and the follow-up about a strange, unfamiliar attribute makes the real problem clear, because whatever they just faced does not fit normal magic at all. Ren keeps pushing the gate conquest because stopping at one boss is how dungeon runs turn into funerals. The team spots the dungeon boss ahead, realizes it is a crystal dragon, and Ren commits to the fight without pretending this is anything but dangerous. That matters because if they cannot break this thing fast, the rest of the dungeon will keep spiraling out of control. Ren takes the first real opening and throws everything he has at the crystal dragon, but the fight immediately turns into a contest of whose magic can overpower the other. Then the dragon answers with brute force of its own, and the whole party has to deal with the ugly truth that this boss is built to punish hesitation. That kind of monster does not care how confident you sounded 5 seconds ago. Ren stops trying to overpower the crystal dragon the normal way, and switches to dark attribute magic, which is the point where the battle stops being about strength and starts being about technique. He drives that spell through the fight until the crystal finally gives way, and the others realize he just solved a problem their raw magic could not. The cost is simple. Everyone sees that Ren is not just strong, he is operating on a different rulebook. Back in the dungeon, after the boss falls, the team gets rewarded with the kind of praise that only comes after surviving something ugly. A blonde man, the authority watching over this challenge, congratulates them for clearing it and singles Ren out for doing more than anyone expected, including cleaning up the monsters that slipped out. He is basically saying the obvious part out loud. Ren carried the messy end of the job too. Now that the dungeon is cleared, Ren stops treating this like a one-off victory and names the real next step, building a clan. The rank display makes the team look official instead of improvised, and when someone questions how 3 people are supposed to conquer gates like that, Ren answers with a simple yes, because he thinks smaller can move faster. Then the Red Coat authority figure backs them publicly, which turns their little survival pact into something the Academy has to acknowledge. With official support now in place, Ren finally lets himself see the bigger picture and realizes this is the start of his clan, not the end of a fight. Then the next question lands fast, because someone points at the displayed gate map and wants to know what it means, which means the team is already moving from victory into planning its next hunt. Ren does not get to rest for long, which is usually how these things go when the paperwork starts working against the monsters. The new clan's first public wins buy Ren something he almost never gets: breathing room. A few members admit the gates closed faster because he moved fast and took risks. And while one of them worries that kind of tactics can burn everyone out, the others decide they're in this together now. Ren keeps it simple and says he's looking forward to what comes next, because for him, this is no longer a temporary alliance, it's the start of a real faction. Back in the Academy's training talk, they finally spell out the useful part of this world. Magic essence can help some people awaken their magic, but only if they have the right aptitude. In other words, power here is not just talent, it is a door that only opens for some people, and that means Ren's clan cannot rely on raw enthusiasm alone. A little fiery display drives the point home, because this place rewards the right kind of potential and humiliates everyone else with a straight face. Now Ren shifts the clan's priority from winning fights to preventing disasters before they bloom. That matters because once gates start moving, the enemy is not just what comes out of them, it is the chaos they leave behind, and Ren is already thinking several steps ahead. He is done treating this like random cleanup, so the team starts organized patrols instead of chasing trouble after it bites someone. During the patrol, Ren senses that something is already arriving, which means his worst fear is right on schedule. The team goes from marching to bracing in a heartbeat, because this is the part where a quiet watch turns into the moment everyone remembers later. Then the gate crisis stops being theory and turns into a live fire disaster. A powerful attacker hammers the area. Buildings go up, people run, and the warning becomes painfully clear. Civilians are still trapped too close to the gate for this to stay a clean mission. Ren now has a brutal choice: save the bystanders first or push deeper before the situation gets even worse. Rein spots the real threat structure in this mess. Dark attribute magic is at work, and that means somebody is steering the destruction on purpose. A dark entity rises, the ground gets torn apart, and the whole scene stops looking like a random breach and starts looking like a coordinated attack. One look is enough for Rein to understand the ugly truth. This gate is not just opened, it is being used. So Ren makes the call to trust Saber with the civilians and go inside the gate with the team still able to fight. That choice separates the rescue from the deeper hunt, because somebody has to keep the people alive, while the real cause is tracked at the source. He moves past the mother and child in shelter and heads straight into the unknown, which is exactly the sort of decision that turns a clan from noisy recruits into something dangerous. Inside the gate, the problem is bigger than a simple cleanup already. A massive force sits at the center of the zone. A blast tears through the area, and communication with the clearing team cuts out, which means the patrol is walking into a rescue mission with no map and no backup guarantee. That is bad news in the most technical sense possible. Outside the immediate confusion, the hunters finally start identifying who is actually involved. One male hunter confronts a red-haired woman from Saber, and she answers that she has heard about him from instructor Genis, while the missing clearing team is confirmed to have gone inside without anyone knowing where they ended up. Now Ren's group is facing the real nightmare of gate work. Not just monsters, but lost people, unknown terrain, and a rescue that can go wrong faster than anybody can fix it. At the Agate Gate, Ren's first clan conquest turns ugly fast, because this is no longer a neat trial run, but a rescue mission with people already trapped inside. The hunters outside are forced to split their attention between evacuating citizens and holding back the monsters pouring out of the gate, which means every mistake now costs lives, not points. Inside the gate, Genis, the academy instructor backing this operation, frames the team as talented young wizards who have to prove they can fight with both power and discipline. That sounds encouraging right up until the group realizes the terrain is a mess. The missing team's trail is all they have, and even the veterans are starting to look nervous. Ren spots the proof they are heading the right way, because the corpses of the missing team's monsters show someone already fought through here. But the same trail also warns them that the enemy ahead is strong enough to wipe out a subjugation squad, and if Saber's elite crew could not clean this up, then the boss in the depths is no joke. So the clan stops acting like spectators and starts fighting as a unit, with each member throwing their own magic into the push instead of hiding behind Ren. That matters because this is the first real test of whether Ren has built a clan or just assembled a crowd that likes his name. Then the gate answers with a brutal escalation, hurling down fire so massive it turns the whole advance into a survival problem. The team survives only if their defense holds, which proves the rescue is now a war against a far larger threat than the missing hunters they came to save. The rescue team is still pinned down, and the senpai realizes the thing coming out of the depths can outmuscle a normal hunt, so he forces everyone to stop panicking and hold a defensive line instead of scattering like idiots. That choice matters because once the monster starts overwhelming them, survival depends on coordination, not heroics. Back in the same crisis, Ren steps into the heart of the danger and finds a spectral enemy rising from the ground, which means this is no longer a simple rescue, but a fight against something the team barely understands. Izumiya, the Academy President and Gate Authority, answers the threat head-on even though the pressure is clearly rattling her, and she commits to a signature spell anyway. Izumiya's strongest attack still fails to finish it, and that is the ugly turn. The creature survives, then answers with a counterattack meant to wipe out everyone standing in its way. In other words, the team has crossed from offense into a desperate defense, and the gate anomaly is strong enough to punish them for underestimating it. Ren refuses to let the others get torn apart, so he plants himself between the threat and his people and turns the fight back into a promise. Nobody gets to touch them. The counter push lands hard enough to break the creature's momentum, and when the dust finally settles, the whole group learns the real cost of this first conquest, because victory only comes after everyone proves they can hold the line without Ren carrying them alone. Back at the Sacred Imperial Academy, the training ground that shapes young mages and seekers, the mood shifts from survival to reputation, because the subjugation team has returned alive and everyone wants to know who carried the job. The officials thank the team for bringing people back safely, and that public praise starts turning Ren from a useful troublemaker into a name the Academy can't ignore. Late at night at the Sacred Imperial Academy, Izumiya catches Ren and the others off guard by showing up with a rare crack in her usual confidence. She tries to act composed, but the whole reason she came is simple. After what happened earlier, she feels powerless and wants Ren to teach her how to stop feeling that way. Ren does not waste the opening, because if he is going to build allies, he needs them to learn fast and trust each other even faster. So he agrees to start immediately, and when Narusa asks to join too, the little training circle stops being a private lesson and starts looking like a real clan in the making. That matters, because Ren is not just collecting followers anymore, he is building people who can stand beside him when the Academy and the gates turn ugly again. Ren then cuts straight to the problem. Both Izumiya and Naruse have bad habits that get exposed the second pressure shows up. He points out that Izumiya charges in without thinking through the worst case, which is the kind of mistake that gets good people flattened when real monsters show up instead of classmates pretending to be polite. Under Ren's instruction, the lesson stops being theory and becomes the kind of coordination that keeps a team alive. His magic moves through the drill with a summoned wolf backing him up, while the others answer with barriers and support instead of freelancing like amateurs, which proves the point. This group only gets dangerous once they stop fighting as separate pieces and start moving like one unit. Izumiya finally admits why she takes gates so personally. Her family is famous, and they're the ones expected to stand on the front line when disaster hits. That turns her from the Academy's polished president into something sharper, because all that responsibility explains why she charges ahead instead of acting safe. Ren sees straight through it and recognizes the same thing in himself, because his own hunger for strength comes from a decision he made long before anyone at this academy knew his name. He calls out the truth without dressing it up, and the result is simple. Everyone here stops pretending this is just training and starts moving like they actually intend to survive together. Then the drill turns ugly in the useful way, with the team splitting cleanly into pressure, support, and cleanup instead of the usual freelancing nonsense that gets people buried. Ren keeps the tempo, the others answer, and that is the real win here, because coordination is the difference between a cute exercise and a corpse count. The enemy still tries to overpower them, but the clan keeps forcing the fight into a shape it can handle, and Ren's side starts landing the kind of punishment that only works when everyone trusts the plan. By the time the big target starts taking real damage, it is obvious the group has stopped being a pile of talented students and started becoming a unit. Ren then finishes the lesson with raw offense, stacking lightning and ice into a brutal answer that his enemy cannot keep absorbing forever. The point is not just that he wins, but that he wins by making the whole team stronger around him, which is exactly the kind of problem that gets the Academy's attention fast. Back in the aftermath, the wider Academy starts noticing what Ren's group just pulled off, and that attention is both praise and trouble in the same breath. A white-streaked observer points out that young wizards keep losing gates one after another, which makes Ren's success look less like a lucky drill and more like a warning that someone is finally worth watching. With the noise around him growing, Ren gets cornered by a girl who comes over to thank him, which is the first sign that his standing is spreading beyond his own circle. He is still trying to build power quietly, but the Academy is already doing what academies do best, noticing talent, gossiping about it, and dragging it into the open. The town thanks Leon out loud because he solves the monster problem they could not, and that turns him from a dangerous rumor into somebody the whole district depends on. An old man says it plain, the territory leader piles on, and even the kids start calling him Leon Ni-chan, which is adorable right up until you realize this guy just became public property. As the praise keeps coming, Leon takes it with the same calm face he wears when he is already 10 moves ahead. The Academy crowd starts treating him like a hero, but the bigger point is simpler. The lowest ranked kid nobody cared about can now change the whole board if he keeps winning. Back in the Academy hallway, Ren brushes off the noise because he does not have time to enjoy being admired. He is still trying to stay focused on the climb back to power, but the moment people start talking about him, privacy is basically dead. Elsewhere at the Academy, 2 uniformed students finally get some breathing room after a long stretch of pressure, and that relief matters because it means someone in this circle is actually making progress. Ren notices the shift and leans in, curious about who is improving and why that matters now. An elder then praises Naruto Naruto and Makoto for how far they have come, and the answer comes back fast. Their growth is tied to Kurobane-kun's training. That tells the viewer the clan's progress is no accident, because Ren is not just getting stronger alone, he is building people who can move with him. The conversation turns when a blonde male asks why his uncle called them here, and the answer is awkward enough to make the room pause. The meeting is not about ceremony at all, it is about Saber's branch, which means this visit is really about being judged by bigger powers. Ren then asks Naruto about the vice branch chief, and the name drops the tension into place. Nihama Reiji. Naruto already knows him, which means this is not some random official, but a man with a track record strong enough to make even Ren pay attention. Nihama Reiji is not a nobody trying to sound important either, because the story reminds everyone he was already skilled back when he was young. He stays undefeated in the school's mock battles and keeps closing gates after joining Saber, so when he asks to meet these students, it is not curiosity, it is a serious test coming to inspect them firsthand. Now inside Nihama's room, he settles in like a man who knows exactly why the rumors reached him. He says he heard about students forming a clan and closing gates, and that he had to meet them in person, which means Ren's little crew has finally become interesting enough to attract real institutional attention. Nihama reaches out and greets the student directly, and the handshake seals the scene's real meaning. This is no longer gossip, this is a challenge wrapped in politeness. Ren is being acknowledged by someone who measures talent for a living, and that kind of recognition can open doors or expose you in a hurry. Town gratitude hangs in the air for a second, but Ren and Nihama do not get to enjoy it for long. The moment the crowd realizes this is becoming a real test, the mood shifts from polite appreciation to the kind of attention that can either make Ren's name or expose how far he still has to go. Ren answers that pressure the way he always does now, by turning it into a fight he can control. He calls for a duel, and when he casually calls Nihama boy, it is less disrespect than a signal that he already sees this as a strength check, not a ceremony. On the arena floor, Ren finally stops talking and starts measuring the gap for real. The audience matters here because it gives Nihama room to show more of his power, which means Ren has to win without the safety of a quiet private spar. Now the duel starts in earnest, and Ren's first job is simple: prove that the killing intent Nihama noticed was not just noise. That little detail matters, because if Ren can rattle a ranked opponent before the first serious exchange, then this academy crowd is about to learn he is not some bullied kid playing at confidence. Ren throws up a storm of pressure, but Nihama refuses to fold and answers with a spell meant to flood the whole field. The point is not just who hits harder, it is who can keep their footing when the arena turns hostile, and Ren's adaptability is already forcing Nihama to rethink the fight. Nihama finally commits to a counter, using water magic to catch Ren where he thinks the field should pin him down, but Ren slips the trap in midair, and that is the turn that matters. His movement is so unnatural that Nihama loses the comfort of thinking this is his fight to control. Nihama tries to slam the door shut and end it right there, but Ren is already moving through the collapse with a foothold no normal fighter would think to use. That is the real proof of his growth, because surviving this kind of pressure means he is not just strong enough to impress the room, he is dangerous enough to keep earning deeper trust. Ren keeps forcing the fight into a place Nihama cannot comfortably read, and that matters because the whole point of this duel is not just winning, but proving he can adapt faster than an experienced mage can set the rules. His confidence spikes when he finds a line through the chaos, and Nihama starts realizing this kid is not surviving by luck anymore. Back in the same duel, Nihama finally acknowledges Ren as a real threat instead of a flashy student, which is the kind of respect that only shows up after someone has already made you sweat. He also admits he is hearing about Ren through his subordinates, so this is not random praise from a stranger, but the battlefield version of a reputation starting to spread. Ren refuses to let the opening settle and goes straight back in with his sight, because if he gives Nihama a clean reset, the older fighter can drag this into a boring attrition game, and that would be bad for everyone with a pulse. Nihama answers by exposing the real gap between them. Ren can keep up, but he is still learning how far the enemy's legendary weapon can bend the terms of the fight. Ren then reveals the part that really changes the room, since he is not leaning on one spell system, but running two at once, which makes the duel less about raw power and more about the terrifying amount of control he is showing. Nihama and the others realize that other wizards train one attribute until it stops embarrassing them, while Ren is already operating on a level that turns that whole standard upside down. Ren stops treating this like a test and starts treating it like a killshot sequence, pushing out a full signature spell that Nihama cannot simply shrug off. Nihama still does not fold, because he answers with dark magic and then fires back again. But the important part is now obvious. Ren has reached the point where even the counterplay has to be improvised, and that is exactly how he earns deeper trust. Ren keeps pushing Nihama past the point where a normal student should have folded, and that is exactly what rattles everyone watching. The real surprise is not that Ren hits hard, it is that he keeps adapting fast enough to make Nihama's counterplay look improvised. One observer finally says the quiet part out loud: this boy is not fighting like a student at all. Ren answers that by showing he is already operating on a level that ordinary academy rules cannot explain, which is why the test stops being about grades and becomes a warning shot. Back in the academy, Izumiya, the president who seals gates, corners the clan about what they have built and why Ren keeps drawing attention. That matters because their little group is no longer a side project now. It is a real organization with consequences, and Izumiya is treating it like one. Then the clan status gets formalized through Saber's branch, the hunter organization's base of operations, and Hashiba Keisuke, a handsome new face who looks annoyingly competent, gets handed a job. The roster dump with Irfan, Juno, and the others is the point where Ren's circle stops looking like loose allies and starts looking like a force. That new force immediately turns to the bigger problem. The gate distribution map from Saber's analysis division shows a pattern, so Ren starts probing the spot that does not fit. When Luna, his hidden companion, calls it a supernatural power, he decides to gamble on his dark attribute and fires off Dispel, because if this place is protected by something unnatural, he needs to rip the lie apart before they walk into it blind. Back in the present descent, Ren and Luna keep moving down the long stairway, and the length of it tells him this is not a small hidden room but a serious secret buried deep underground. Then he spots something huge below, and whatever it is big enough to make him stop talking mid-thought. From the elevated ledge, Ren finally sees what the whole detour was hiding, a field of red flowers buried deep under the Academy world, and they are way too deliberate to be natural. Luna and Ren both realize this is the same mystery they were already chasing, which means someone has been building a secret right under everyone's feet. Back in the underground chamber, Ren starts connecting the dots and almost says the obvious answer out loud, but the place answers first. A defense system wakes up and decides the intruders are the problem, so this stops being an investigation and turns into a trap. Ren takes command because hesitation gets people killed in places like this, and the team throws itself at the drone before it can lock them down. The machine proves it is not just a floating hunk of metal though, since its core powers up like it was waiting for a proper target, and now the clan has to survive the Guardian long enough to learn who built it. As the fight escalates, Narush Shuya, the Academy authority figure with enough nerve to swing in under pressure, shouts for Izumiya and Narush to hit back, and the battle finally tilts from panic to coordinated resistance. One fighter hammers the drone with dark magic, while another keeps the pressure on with a brutal claw technique, and the machine starts losing the armor that was supposed to make it untouchable. Then the whole problem changes shape. Something far bigger than the drone drags the fight into a higher level of danger, and Ren gets his first real answer. The thing standing over them is connected to another dimension, which means the hidden enemy is not some random ruin guardian, but an invasion with a face. Ren stares at the thing in front of him and finally understands this is not some random guardian gone wild. It is Shark, the thief from Leon's old world, and that recognition hits like a knife because it turns the whole fight into revenge with a deadline. Back in the same fight, the strange mark on Ren's body flares as the truth settles in. Leon's power is still surfacing inside him, and Shark is the one man who dragged everything precious out of Leon's life before dumping him into hell. Leon does not waste the opening either, because once he confirms Shark is here, the hunt stops being a memory and becomes a plan. At the Academy, the system finally starts naming the people around the crisis, and that matters because this mess is bigger than one duel. Irfan, the ranked fighter, and Juno, another key student in the data records, are tied to the wider response, which means the Guardian drone was only one piece of a much larger disaster. Meanwhile, Leon keeps his head while Luna worries over him, and he shuts that fear down by telling her he is already focused on the one person he came back to find. Luna realizes Shark still does not know Leon is inside Ren, so she can only pray he survives long enough to land the first real blow. Now the fight at the anomaly turns into a test of whether Shark can keep up with the man he once destroyed. Leon has already forced out the clue that this enemy can use more than 4 attributes, so he stops playing safe and starts answering with stronger magic, pushing Shark into a corner where raw talent is no longer enough. That pressure lets Leon change the rhythm completely, because once Shark is forced upward and off balance, he can no longer hide behind intimidation. Leon even has time to taunt him with a clean little nice moves, which is the sort of compliment that usually means somebody is about to get buried. Leon then snaps the whole exchange into its true shape. He has found Shark in this world, and Shark is finally looking at the enemy he stole from last time. When Leon unveils the new technique and answers Shark's confusion with overwhelming force, the message is simple, brutal, and overdue. Ren is done surviving by accident. Now he is walking straight toward the man who ruined Leon's life. The fight turns the moment Shark's agent stops trying to overpower Ren and starts trying to survive him. Ren answers that hesitation with a brutal reminder. He is not here to relive Leon's old defeat, and he refuses to let history steal this one too. Back in the middle of the clash, Shark's agent admits the real problem. He hates heroes, and that hatred is what fuels his killer be killed nonsense. Ren snaps right back, because he has no patience left for this man's little villain speech, and even less patience for being treated like prey. Ren finally commits to dark magic, and that choice matters because he is no longer just reacting. He is taking control of the duel. The chains close in, the agent realizes too late that his escape window is gone, and Ren crushes the fight into a finish that proves his power has moved past desperation and into punishment. Even after getting bound and broken, Shark's agent still reacts like Ren's magic tells him something personal, which is the kind of creepy little detail that means this fight is not ending cleanly. He laughs through the pain, the battlefield keeps collapsing around them, and Ren's side gets one more warning shout before the next threat lands squarely on Kurobane's name. Ren is still riding the edge of victory here, and the point of the fight is simple. Shark's agent tries to survive long enough to make his hatred heard, while Ren decides this enemy does not get to walk away twice. When the man spits out his warning about Shark, Ren answers with a kind of certainty that comes only after a brutal win, because this is no longer about just escaping a duel. It is about settling the score for real. With the immediate threat pushed back, the story pauses just long enough to remind us that Ren's world is bigger than this one enemy. Irfan and Juno's appearance, then the empty platform and the missing trace of Shark underline the same problem from both sides. The battlefield is quiet, but the real mastermind is still out of reach. That is the worst kind of victory, the kind where the body count is lower than the unanswered questions. Back in the aftermath of the fight, Leon finally opens up about the power he stole from the Abyss, and the conversation turns into a lesson in why he came back so monstrous. Luna presses him about dark magic. Leon explains that normal people cannot endure those particles, and the truth lands hard. He did not just survive the underworld, he adapted to it until it rewrote him. That is why the title matters, because the Abyss did not merely trap Leon, it forged him into the underworld transcendent. The goddess then fills in the cost behind that rebirth, and suddenly Leon's calm starts looking a lot heavier. She remembers the family he lost, the suffering he endured, and the moment she could only watch as a gate pulled him out, which means his return was never clean salvation, just a rescue with scars attached. Her promise as the goddess's angel turns the whole exchange into a quiet vow to heal what the Abyss broke, even if she cannot erase what it did. Now back in the present, Ren cuts off the cosmic backstory before it swallows the room, because he still needs practical help more than destiny speeches. He says he is only borrowing this body for now, thanks Luna for standing with him, and Luna answers without hesitation that she will stay with him all the way, which locks in the one thing Ren actually needs right now, someone on his side who does not flinch when the situation gets ugly. Then their confused look says the obvious thing nobody wants to spell out aloud, that this mess is not over and Ren is still living on borrowed time. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the Academy world, the wider crisis starts to surface again through ordinary people noticing something is wrong. A red-suited man greets the dark-haired boy, Nehama gets questioned about trouble in his area, and then the alarm finally breaks. His subordinates are calling because a gate has appeared nearby. So the danger Ren has been circling is not staying politely in the background anymore. It is spreading fast enough to drag new people into it whether they understand the stakes or not. Ren and the others finally have something solid to hold onto. A sample of the red flower, the nasty little piece of evidence that starts turning random disasters into one connected problem. Once they compare it to what they saw on the field, the scary part clicks into place fast enough to ruin everybody's mood. After the fight, the group stops chasing shadows and starts asking the right question, because now they can prove the flower is not just decoration for some creepy ritual. Nihama and the others confirm the sample, and Ren starts treating this like a mechanism instead of a coincidence, which is a lot more useful than panic. Back in the earlier incident, the story rewinds to show why this flower matters so much. At that time, the party is already in trouble inside a gate, and the monster's behavior proves that whatever the flower does, it pushes enemies past a point where normal mana control stops helping. That earlier dungeon run makes the pattern impossible to ignore. The red flower threat is not random. It changes the battlefield by breaking the usual limits on mana. By the time the creature and the force behind it fully reveal themselves, Ren's side is no longer dealing with isolated attacks, but with a crisis that keeps escalating into a bigger monster every time they think they've pinned it down. The Frost Gigas catches Ren and his side off guard with a hit so heavy it sends them flying, and for a second, the whole plan nearly falls apart. Ren still keeps hold of his weapon, because losing it here would mean losing the fight and probably the gate with it. Back in the middle of the disaster, the real problem shows itself. The Frost Gigas is being driven by that red flower, and its body is getting twisted into something that normal mana control should not be able to produce. Ren and the others get dragged under that pressure, which means this is no longer a simple monster hunt. It is a race against whatever that flower is mutating inside the enemy. Reed decides they cannot survive another exchange by playing defense, so he calls the core the weak point and throws dark attribute magic at it to force the Gigas back. It works just enough to prove the plan, but not enough to end it, so the team realizes they need something far nastier before the Frost Gigas finishes evolving into a bigger problem. With time running out, Leon steps in and chooses the one spell that can still raise their odds, but he cannot cast it instantly, so the others have to hold the line for him. That matters because this is the fight's real turn. The team stops reacting and starts buying time for Leon's answer to show up. Then the battlefield snaps into the next phase as Leon's power comes online, and the Frost Gigas answers with a fully monstrous counter of its own. The enemy stops hiding behind tricks and starts announcing a final stage transformation in the most obnoxious way possible, which means Ren's side has survived the setup only to meet the boss form. Back in the present, Ren and his side are no longer scrambling to survive the flower-boosted Frost Gigas, because Leon's counterspell finally gives them a real opening. The problem is that the thing answers like a boss that refuses to die politely, and it keeps shredding them with a fuse dark and fire assault that screams this fight was never supposed to be fair. Then the team stops treating the creature like a single monster and starts hitting it like a finished problem, and that shift finally breaks its momentum. Ren's group brings it down hard enough to celebrate, which is a rare luxury in this mess, but Leon immediately reminds everyone that a win in one gate does not mean the disaster is over. Leon sees the real danger spreading beyond this battlefield. If that red flower phenomenon keeps appearing in other gates, this becomes a chain reaction instead of a one-off raid. So when he confirms the flower-boosted spiders across the gates are beaten, the mood shifts from victory to dread, because now the enemy is clearly moving to the final stage of a much bigger plan. And that final stage has a name, because Belfar is the prize behind all of this, not just some random raid boss. Once his revival enters the picture, the whole battle stops being about one mutated creature and becomes a race against the return of the Demon King himself. The fight then explodes across multiple fronts, with Leon and the others forced to keep trading spells in a battle that has already gone past the point of clean control. The point here is simple. If they lose coordination for even a moment, moment, the entire operation collapses under the pressure. At that point, someone finally cuts through the chaos and tells everyone to lock in, because panic is exactly how gates stay open. Ren objects immediately, since sitting back is not his style and not his survival instinct either, but the officers push the group into a coordinated response instead of letting heroics turn into a disaster. So Ren's side starts working with Leon's group instead of fighting the situation alone, and that cooperation is what lets them push the crisis toward a clean seal. The battle turns into controlled damage for once, and when the gate finally seals, the survivors are left standing in the wreckage like they just won a war by 3 inches and pure stubbornness. Back in the aftermath, Ren can finally think instead of just swinging, and that is when the obvious suspicion lands. Prince Shark smells like the one steering this mess from behind the curtain. Ren's no fool, so the victory does not end the danger, it just points him toward the next enemy with a crown on his head. Ren knows the crisis is still hanging over them, so he doesn't waste the victory on relief. He swears he'll pay back every debt this war has piled on him, and that the next time he faces Prince Shark, he wants the real monster standing there, not some shadowy scheme hiding behind a crown. Back in the fight, Ren's side keeps the pressure on, because this is the only way to force answers out of Prince Shark's camp. The exchange turns brutal and messy, but the point is clear, Ren is no longer just surviving the attack, he is starting to call out the man he believes is behind it. With the battle easing for a second, Ren finally realizes who is actually organizing the defense. He calls out Headmaster Genis, and the old man explains the ugly truth that the students begged for real combat training instead of evacuation, which means this whole place is being held together by stubborn kids and bad options. That realization lands harder, because the students are not panicking, they're choosing to stay in the fire. One girl even shrugs off the danger and blames Ren for dragging the whole situation into this shape, and Ren can only accept it, because she is not wrong and he knows it. Then the Academy's quiet little recovery gets interrupted by a very bad sign. Ren spots a delinquent who used to bother Leon, someone now caught up in the bigger mess, and the only sensible response is to move faster before the next disaster swallows them whole. And that is when the situation stops being a training problem and turns into a city problem. A huge purple disturbance rises overhead, the sky darkens, and everyone watching understands they are staring at something far beyond a normal gate incident. The warning becomes reality right in front of them. A massive red phenomenon erupts. Monsters are suddenly part of the same nightmare, and the name for it finally lands on the page. This is the Red Flower, which means Ren's Academy fight has just widened into a full-scale disaster. The Academy's training day gets wiped out in a heartbeat when the Red Flower disaster spills over the city, turning the sky into a kill zone and wiping out buildings like they are paper. Ren and the others stop thinking about mock battles real fast, because now the question is not who wins the lesson, it is who survives the invasion. Across the city, the nightmare keeps spreading as the Red Flower rips through multiple floors and monsters pour out through the gates in force. That is the point where everyone understands this is not a contained incident anymore, and one wrong step means getting buried under a full-scale outbreak. Somebody on the rooftops is enjoying the chaos a little too much, which tells Ren this attack is not random at all. While the city burns underneath them, the enemy is already treating the disaster like a setup, and that makes the next move even uglier. As the panic spreads, Ren realizes the situation has already moved past simple rescue work and into a bigger conspiracy, because someone is baiting them while the streets fall apart. He keeps moving anyway, but now every answer has to come while monsters are crashing in from every direction. Elsewhere in the chaos, Ren squares off against the force behind the attack and states the one thing that matters to him now. He is fighting for the world, not just for revenge. The enemy answers by turning the battlefield into a numbers game, which forces Ren to stop holding back and pull out advanced earth magic before the swarm swallows everyone. Ren's advanced technique finally lands with crushing force, and the pressure attack tears through the enemy line hard enough to carve the rooftops up with it. That buys him a moment, not a victory, but in a fight like this, even one clean opening proves he can still bend a disaster back in his favor. Makabe finally gets his name thrown into the fight, and that matters, because this stops being a random ambush and turns into a showdown with people Ren actually knows. The red-suited fighter keeps talking like he owns the battlefield, while the purple beast he unleashes makes it painfully clear the enemy is not here to brawl fair. Makabe answers the pressure by attacking before the enemy can keep dictating the pace, but the real danger is that the other side is already treating him like the obvious target. The red-haired fighter, another dangerous ally or enemy depending on how much faith you have in this mess, grins like he enjoys being underestimated, then cuts in close enough to make the next move personal. With reinforcements on the way, the fight turns into a race against time, because Makabe only needs to hold long enough for help to arrive. He accepts that role without drama, which is exactly the sort of decision that keeps people alive in a battlefield packed with bad odds and worse surprises. The enemy stops pretending this is a skirmish and hits the whole group with a crushing display of force, turning the building and everything around it into collateral damage. Ren and the survivors are forced onto higher ground, which buys them a view of just how badly the enemy wants control, not victory. At the center of the ruin, the towering attacker finally matters more than the spectacle, because someone down there has been waiting for him, and already knows this is no accident. The blonde survivor realizes the flowers are draining mana and calls out the ritual for what it is, and that explanation turns the chaos into a plan with a face. Ren understands the trap, recognizes the interfering anomaly, and starts to answer back, which means the enemy has been exposed but not stopped yet. Ren locks in the instant he realizes this fight is bigger than one angry ambush. He snaps the pieces together fast. The enemy's presence matches the one from that cave, which means this attack is tied to the same hidden force that has been moving in the dark all along. That truth pushes the whole battle from chaos into a personal grudge, and Ren finally stops asking questions. He answers the threat with raw intent, promising hell to the man in front of him, because if Shark's side starts murdering academy students here, everyone Ren is trying to protect gets turned into a message. The enemy still has the upper hand at first, and the clash proves Ren is not walking into a simple rematch. The blast of power leaves the survivors reeling, but Ren stays standing, which matters because it shows he can still force the enemy to respect him even when the battlefield is trying to bury him. Now the real trap springs shut. The blonde fighter Leon tries a spell he recognizes from before, but the opponent shrugs it off and answers with an absolute barrier, turning the fight into a lesson in how badly this enemy has prepared for him. Leon gets hammered down for it, and for a second, the enemy looks ready to finish the job with no mercy left in the room. Leon's companion rushes to check on him, but the enemy is already shifting into the next move, and that tells everyone this battle is not about winning a duel anymore. It is about surviving a killing field. Then Leon refuses to stay pinned. He answers the prison of force with chains of restraint and pushes back through the very technique meant to crush him, which proves he still has one more layer of forbidden power left when the enemy thinks he is finished. Makabe and Ren keep pressing Shark's side, but the enemy answers with a kind of defense that turns a battle into a trap. The mirror of rejection sends the force right back at them, and for a moment, Shark's people look almost pleased, like they've been waiting for someone to test their nastiest trick. That reversal is the problem though. Ren and his allies are not fighting a normal mage anymore. They are fighting a setup built to punish every bold move, and the enemy starts dragging the whole field toward a finish line where mercy is not part of the plan. Back on the same battlefield, Shark's side escalates again by bringing in a monstrous restraint that locks one of the white-haired fighters down, while the others scramble to understand what they are even looking at. That matters because the fight is no longer about winning cleanly. It is about whether Ren can stop his people from being picked off one by one. Ren snaps upward and rips Luna out of danger before the enemy can finish the job. He throws everything he has into one desperate answer, and the huge burst that follows proves he still has a way to force open a path even when the enemy thinks he is cornered. Sharkside responds by showing just how ugly their confidence really is. The transformation comes with a threat to bury everyone together, not just beat them. Ren sees what defeat would cost him now, because Luna is exposed below and the rest of the group is one bad collapse away from disaster. So this becomes a fight for everybody left standing, not his pride. Now the scene shifts into the deeper truth behind the chaos, because Leon has already forced his way back into the fight with a technique that should not be possible at this scale. The others can barely believe he is absorbing that much magic and still controlling it with that much precision, which means Sharkside is suddenly dealing with a man who can turn their own power into a weapon. Leon makes his intent plain and drives the point home. The barrier is supposed to be the last word, but it is not enough to save Shark now. He pierces it anyway, and the shocked reaction from the onlookers says exactly what this moment proves. His forbidden power has finally become strong enough to break a defense the enemy thought was absolute. Leon figures out the barrier never cared about strength alone, so he cuts through it by matching its own light attribute and turns Shark's perfect defense into a very expensive mistake. Then he stops talking like a man buying time and starts moving like someone who means to collect a debt, because this is the moment Ren finally converts survival into punishment. Shark tries to bluff his way through the collapse by acting untouchable, but Leon keeps pressing until the truth starts leaking out. Shark has been hiding behind borrowed power and a contract that promises him immortality. That means this fight is not just about winning now, it is about exposing the rotten deal that let Shark keep coming back. Years earlier, Leon stands at the top of the world, praised by the kingdom and trusted by the king, which is exactly why Shark's betrayal cuts so deep. Shark does not just want Leon dead, he wants to watch him lose everything first, because that is how you turn a hero's life into a warning label. Back in the present, Shark's hatred stops being theater and becomes the reason this whole disaster exists, as he twists power into a personal war and drags other people into it without a second thought. Leon answers that cruelty with a simple line in the sand. Shark does not get to keep taking from anyone ever again. Leon finally forces the clash to its breaking point, and Shark is left laughing because he knows this is the part where either his immortality holds or his whole scheme dies with him. Then Ren drives straight through the resistance anyway, proving that Shark's advantage is cracking right when he needs it most. Years before the Academy mess, Leon and Luna are already in the middle of a fight that decides whether the world belongs to him or to the man trying to seize it. Leon keeps Luna calm because he knows panic gets people killed, and the villain starts the whole disaster with the kind of speech only a total psycho gives when he thinks no one can stop him. Then Leon answers the threat the only way that matters. He refuses to let Shark's plan reach the finish line. What follows is a straight-up collision of power and will, and Leon holds the line long enough to turn the battle from a threat into a reckoning. The clash peaks and tears the battlefield open, which means Leon is no longer just resisting Shark. He is breaking the advantage Shark built around himself. That kind of force does not stay neat, and the blast makes it obvious this fight is already costing both both sides more than pride. Shark still tries to crash down on Leon with one last desperate strike, but this is the point where the table starts to flip. The attack comes in hard, Leon meets it head on, and the result is a full force explosion that says Shark's control is slipping fast. Back in the present memory of that fight, the seal's power and the skeleton's shape make Leon realize this was never just a random rampage. He finally sees the one difference that matters, the hidden twist in Shark's nature or method that explains why he keeps surviving longer than he should. That realization hits hard, because once Leon understands the trick, he stops fighting blind. He goes in with a killing answer instead of another desperate swing, and Shark gets forced down under a barrage he cannot shrug off this time. Leon stands over the wreckage as the battlefield finally goes quiet, and the crowd can see who actually won this round. That matters because revenge is not just about landing the final blow here. It is about proving Shark can bleed, can lose, and can be cornered. Back in the present, someone notices the sky-slashed aftermath and realizes the fight has opened the door to something bigger than a personal grudge. Leon and Luna stand together through the fallout, and Leon's expression says he is not done yet, because this victory only matters if he keeps moving before the next disaster arrives. Back years before the present, Leon is at the end of the road he spent his whole life walking, and Luna, his hidden companion, looks up at him with the kind of relief that only comes after surviving the impossible. He is finally standing close to someone he fought to protect, but the win already carries a sting, because this is the moment where he can feel what victory cost him. Leon looks back over the long chase that brought him here, and admits the ugly truth. He did not spend those years chasing glory, he spent them chasing Shark. That makes this a revenge story, not a victory lap, and it explains why the air around him never really feels safe even when he wins. At the confrontation, Shark finally stands where Leon can reach him, and the fight stops being about memory and turns into payback. Leon does not waste the chance on speeches, because after losing everything once, he knows one thing matters more than rage, making sure the bastard cannot walk away again. Leon admits the part revenge can never fix. Even after he avenges the people he lost, the precious things that died with them do not come back, and that truth keeps biting at him under the satisfaction. So the revenge is real, but it is also hollow in the one place he cannot heal. That grief hardens into action, and Leon clenches down on the power he has built through years of hell. He answers the loss the only way he knows how, by hitting back so hard that the battlefield erupts and the old promise to his dead finally gets paid in blood and wreckage. Back in the same aftermath, Luna rushes to him, and Leon lets himself hold onto her for a beat, because even a monster hunter needs one person left to come home to. He is not pretending this makes the pain vanish, he is simply choosing not to stand alone with it. Still in the wrecked field, Leon and the others stare out at the huge destruction his revenge leaves behind, and the scale of it makes the cost impossible to ignore. The next step is no longer about winning a single fight, because now his actions have pulled everyone else into the fallout too. Now the story shifts forward to Ren's academy life, and the mood changes from aftermath to assignment as Ren and Luna rejoin the group under Nahama, an authority figure who is now watching them as elite mages. Ren keeps it simple and asks to visit family first, because even after all that power, the kid still has people he wants to check on before anything else gets worse. At the academy field, Leon takes command in front of the students and lays out the next order of business. They are not just survivors anymore, they are being pushed to grow into real mages. The students answer as one, which tells everyone that Leon's presence has already turned a loose crowd into a unit. Leon's uniform and the crowd looking up at him make the point plain. He is no longer just the man who came back to settle old grudges. He is being recognized as someone with authority again. When the observer reacts in shock that 3 people are joining an elite mage organization, the bigger cost of all this progress comes into focus, because every gain pulls them deeper into a system that is only getting more dangerous. Then Leon cuts in with one more announcement, and the whole student assembly waits for the next rule to drop. In other words, the revenge arc is over, but the consequences are just getting organized into official business, which is usually how trouble gets promoted. Back in the Sacred Imperial Academy, the announcement finally lands. Saber's best people are being gathered into a new elite group, and everyone can feel the politics hiding inside the applause. Reiji Nihama steps up as the captain, with Ren named among the members, which means the kid who came here to survive has now been pulled straight into the academy's top tier. Nihama acts like the chaos was part of the fun, and tells everyone to look forward to what comes next. But Ren has his own priority. He asks for permission to visit somewhere first, because even after all this promotion nonsense, family still matters more than ceremony. That request opens the real wound. Ren's little sister Meg is alone, and the story quietly shifts from status to survival. The moment her name comes up, Ren's feelings make it plain that this is not a casual detour. It is the one thing he cannot ignore. Outside the academy, the danger stops being abstract and becomes personal, because someone urgently calls him to the hospital. Ren moves fast, and the reason is obvious now. He is racing toward a family crisis that cuts deeper than any battlefield. At the hospital, Meg is revealed in a state of violent mana overload, and the doctor's numbers tell the ugly truth before anyone even says it out loud. Her body is being crushed by mana poisoning, which means Ren's happy reunion turns into a countdown to whether he can save her at all. The doctor explains the rule behind the tragedy. Mana awakens magic in the gifted, but for those without the right aptitude, it becomes poison instead. Meg is the unlucky case, there is no known cure, and that leaves Ren staring at a problem brute force cannot simply punch into submission. That helplessness is exactly what pulls Leon back to the front, because he refuses to let Ren lose a sister after surviving everything else. Leon heads through the hospital with purpose, and the next move is clear. If anyone can force a solution out of this curse, it is the mage who already cheated death once. Back when Ren is still a child, the nightmare starts with a family emergency that the kid never gets to control. Leon shows up carrying Meg, and he makes it plain that he is not backing away from this one, because Ren's sister is already caught in something ordinary medicine can't fix. Back then, Ren is forced to face the ugly truth. Meg's body is rejecting mana, so the power that creates gifted mages turns into poison for her instead. That leaves him with a responsibility he never asked for, and Leon with a decision to shoulder the burden anyway. Years earlier, the story explains where that fear comes from. Children with no relatives get shipped into the orphanage, and Ren grows up with the kind of loneliness that makes every medical crisis feel personal. Even the diary remembers it, because apparently this tragedy insisted on paperwork. Still in the past, the memory widens out to the hospital and the street outside it, where sirens, collapse, and panic all point to the same thing. Ren's life gets split in two by an event he cannot stop. One moment he is standing, the next he is down, and the coma leaves everyone else carrying the damage. Back at the Academy world later on, Ren has survived long enough to wear the uniform and move like someone who has already buried his old self. That matters because the weak kid from the orphanage is gone now, and the man inside him is the one who remembers exactly who ruined his life. With revenge finally paid against Prince Shark, Ren can stop looking backward for 1 second and start asking the next dangerous question. He wants to know where the gates are, so he pushes for answers, learns they appear in uninhabited areas, and hears that Saber has been researching them too. That search leads him to a name and a warning, Shuya District, and no, he should not rush there blind. Ren hesitates for half a breath, then commits anyway, because this guy does not survive betrayal by playing safe when another crisis is already opening up. The next move throws Leon into a catastrophic dimensional space, where the cure he needs comes with the usual terrible price tag. The structure starts collapsing around him, he gets shoved into the rift, and the whole situation turns into a fight just to stay alive long enough to reach the answer. Inside that collapse, Leon finally sees why Nahama warned him off. This place is not just dangerous, it is the kind of problem that punishes anyone who thinks raw power is enough. He starts reading the phenomenon for what it is, and the realization hits that saving Meg may demand stepping even deeper into the impossible. Leon refuses to stop and pushes straight into the collapsing curse space, because the cure he needs is buried inside the thing that is trying to kill him. His follower calls after him, but he cuts the explanation short and commits to the ugly choice. If this works, it saves Meg, and if it fails, he at least dies after trying. Inside the dimensional rift, Leon climbs through a hellscape that keeps getting meaner the farther he goes. This is the real test, not whether he can hit hard, but whether he can keep reading the disaster fast enough to survive it. The crisis hits its peak, and the space around him starts hammering him back with brute force. Leon gets shoved, thrown, and driven down again and again, which proves the warning was real. This place punishes anyone who expects raw power to solve everything. Leon answers the pressure with the kind of desperate counterattack that only works when failure is not an option. His ally can see he is still holding the line, but the clock is running out, so this turns into a race between his stamina and the cure itself. Leon finally forces the battle back in his favor and lands the decisive blow that cracks the crisis open. That swing matters because it is the difference between getting dragged under by the rift and taking the power he came here for. Back in the rescue thread, Ren drops through the purple vortex and comes in hot because the moment of truth has arrived and somebody is still trying to stop the cure from happening. The fight turns personal here, with Ren's ferocity spiking as the damage keeps stacking up around the people he is trying to save. The medical side of the crisis finally comes into focus, and the team sees the cost in plain terms. Meg is not just hurt, she is slipping fast. The alert about her vitals makes the mission urgent in a different way, because now every second Leon spends fighting is tied directly to whether she lives. Now inside the crisis zone, Ren has won just enough ground to make the rescue possible, but one wrong move still decides whether Meg lives or dies. That's why he keeps forcing the fight forward instead of playing safe, because this isn't about winning a brawl anymore. It's about reaching the cure before the body gives out. Ren finally breaks through and drops the purple stone into play, and the battlefield starts to shift from pure destruction to a real chance at saving someone. The ugly part is that the city takes the hit for it, since the attack tears into the building and exposes the monster hiding underneath, which tells you this mess was never just a random ambush. Still in the same fight, Ren answers with the kind of focus that only comes when failure has a face attached to it. He locks in, commits to the attack, and forces the enemy to back off long enough for the rescue chain to keep moving. Ren is no longer just surviving the crisis, he is buying time with violence, and every second matters. As the pressure breaks, the people around the scene start reacting to something they barely understand, because the battle is spilling into the rest of the city now. Ren keeps moving through the wreckage while others try to make sense of the damage, and that confusion matters because it shows how wide the disaster has already spread. Back on the ruined rooftop at dusk, Ren refuses to stop at the edge of the problem and pushes the next part of the rescue into motion. He has already done the hard part by forcing the opening, so now he needs the stone to reach Meg before the illness wins the race. In the hospital, the cure finally reaches the people who can use it, and the doctor's shock makes it clear this is no ordinary treatment. The pink-purple power surges through the room, bodies are thrown back by the release, and that chaos proves the stone is carrying the exact kind of force Meg needs to survive. Now the scene shifts from battle to aftermath in the hospital, where Meg's survival stops being a theory and becomes a human moment. Ren stands beside the bed while the truth of her condition settles in, and when hands finally reach and hold, the whole ordeal lands where it always had to. Not in revenge, but in the cost of saving one life. Meg finally wakes up, and the first thing she does is reach for the cup like she's proving to herself that she's still here. Ren sees it and relaxes for the first time in a while, because the girl who was close to dying is now stubbornly, annoyingly alive. Back in the hospital room, the staff keep working on the wounded man while Ren hears the talk about a big brother, and realizes this family mess is bigger than one rescue. Then the memory hits like a wall. There was a moment when everything went dark, and both of them were one breath away from getting swallowed by it. That fear pays off in the next beat, because the dark threat closes in again and forces the truth out of her chest. Ren saved her, and she knows it. Her gratitude lands hard enough to turn the room from panic into relief, which is why the embrace matters more than the medicine just then. After that, the story shifts to the grave, where the promise is simple and brutal. The dead are not the end of the problem, just the reason to keep moving. Ren says there is still work left in this world, and that turns grief into a job he cannot walk away from. Now the focus lands on the bigger mystery behind all this pain. Someone points out that Ren managed to save the girl's sister, and that victory starts connecting the hospital crisis to the larger illness threatening them all. The celebration is small, but the stakes are not, because saving one person only matters if he can figure out what is poisoning everyone in the first place. The search for answers leads straight into the bedroom where the sick patient is still suffering, and the sight of him makes the danger feel personal instead of theoretical. Ren digs through the evidence, recognizes that same miasma from before, and the clenched, damaged hand makes it clear this problem has already cost too much. Then the memory sharpens into a battle he cannot ignore. A monster opens its mouth. Another ugly piece of the same horror writhes beside it, and Ren answers the only way he knows how, with force. He draws his weapon, cuts through the threat, and the strange purple crystal that appears in the aftermath tells him the fight did not just end, it revealed the key to what comes next. Back in bed, Ren holds that crystal and starts rising through the pink-lit surge around him, and the whole moment finally makes his inner conflict obvious. He has been carrying regret this entire time, and the diary makes it clear why. He knew what was happening, he knew the pain was real, and he still had to keep moving anyway. Ren clings to the crystal and finally names the thing driving him. He is not chasing power for its own sake, he is trying to protect someone precious. That matters because this whole return stops being revenge for a second and becomes something more human, which is usually where the pain hides. Back in Ren's head, the memory cuts deeper because he knows this was not some clean miracle under normal circumstances. He pushes through the strain anyway, and that stubbornness is what keeps him standing when the pressure in his body starts to feel like it wants to split him in half. Then the release hits, and the whole mess finally lands on the people around him. What looked like a simple recovery is actually the moment he proves he can survive the power he is carrying. He comes out of it shaken but alive, and that is still a win in a world that keeps trying to eat him. Ren's answer is simple. Being able to protect someone is better than any empty victory speech. That is the real payoff of his ordeal, because it turns his suffering into purpose instead of just another scar. Elsewhere, Nihama starts hearing new information, and the mood shifts from private emotion to public fallout. Once his name comes up and the doctor's update gets relayed, he realizes the situation is bigger than one recovered student, which means Ren is stepping into a much more dangerous hierarchy than he first expected. That warning becomes real fast, because the story cuts to a broadcast, a surveillance feed, and people already moving like they know trouble is coming. The academy stops feeling like a school, and starts feeling like a place where every room has watchers, and every watcher has an agenda. Back in the present, the tension stops being political, and turns into a straight-up demonstration of power. One superior fighter slams another down, and makes the pecking order impossible to ignore. Ren is watching the kind of strength he needs to reach, and the message is cruelly clear, because in this world, training only matters if it turns you into the person standing over the other guy. Later, indoors in Japan, the pressure finally eases enough for tea and a blunt reality check. Ren is told he is still a student and still stuck solving the mana poisoning problem, which means the new power comes with homework from hell, and he can't just go be dramatic in a hallway and call it progress. He answers that burden by standing back up with a new resolve, and the red fabric at his side makes it obvious he is not drifting anymore. The next move is already forming. Something ominous is waking up in the distance. The group starts moving toward it, and someone calls out that they have found him, which means the hunt is now mutual. In the academy hallway, Ren's new life stops looking abstract and starts looking operational, because the people around him are no longer strangers in the background, but part of the machine he has to work with. Someone hesitates about what comes next, and Ren cuts through it by saying the special unit still has 2 more members, which means he is already thinking like a commander instead of a bystander. Back in the same corridor, that confidence gets tested the old-fashioned way, since a masked attacker lunges at Ren before the introductions can even settle. Ren meets the attack head-on, and the moment immediately proves the real point of the special unit. If he wants allies here, he has to survive people who treat conversation like a warm-up. Then Katsuragi Haruto, a former support unit member reporting for duty, steps in and finally puts a name to the red-haired fighter everybody has been circling around. He calls Ren Nissan like they already have history, and that surprise lands because Ren is not just meeting a new teammate, he is learning this unit is built out of people with their own grudges, loyalties, and weirdly personal greetings. Katsuragi Haruto does not waste time looking friendly for long. He squares up, turns the encounter into a challenge, and the whole mood shifts from paperwork to prove it, which is exactly the kind of team-building academy life keeps inventing when nobody asked for it. The red-haired fighter makes the rule of the room painfully clear. If Ren drags Naihama down, he gets kicked out on the spot. Ren answers with a dry interruption and lands a counter anyway, so the others can see he is not just the bullied kid from class anymore. He is already sharp enough to talk back and hit back in the same breath. Only after the dust starts settling does the actual structure of the unit get explained. The combat side belongs to the subjugation unit, while support and medical handle everything that keeps people alive, which matters because Ren is walking into a system where strength alone does not solve a gate disaster. That system has already been shaken by the Black Gate and Red Flower incidents, so this is no classroom club with badges. The crisis has a face now too, because the trail leads to Demon King Belfar, and his appearance in the briefing turns the whole mission from local academy trouble into the next piece of a much uglier war. The whole squad snaps to attention when the Black Gate alarm goes off, because nobody in this room gets to treat this like a drill anymore. Ren sees the panic spread, and he knows the only way this mission survives is if someone takes command fast enough to make the others follow. One operative claims he has already cleared a Black Gate before, which raises the stakes in a very practical way. This threat is not new, just uglier. Ren moves to take the lead anyway, but an older fighter cuts him off, basically asking why a kid should be calling the shots when the gate itself is about to open. Ren answers the doubt with power instead of speeches, and that is the whole point of the scene. He forces the room to see that leadership here is not a title, it is the ability to stop a disaster before it eats everyone alive. Ren keeps pressing forward, preparing the kind of counter that tells the squad he is done asking permission. He makes it clear who leads this unit now, and the others have to accept it because the next step is already in motion. In the corridor by the gate, the special unit finally gathers as a real team instead of a pile of nervous bodies, and the mission stops being theoretical. Even the one left on the ground is dragged into the decision to move, which matters because nobody can afford hesitation once a Black Gate is